Hello and welcome to the Jedi Rest YouTube channel. This is 2+ hours of Star Wars stories to sleep to, study to, things of that nature. Hit the subscribe if you hated the Obi-Wan series. Now onto our book of tales across the galaxy. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. What if love conquered fear? What if the fallen had chosen differently? These are the untold stories of paths not taken, where heroes become villains and villains find redemption, where protocol droids remember forbidden truths, where princesses wield lightsabers from birth, and where the smallest choices reshape entire worlds. From Tatooine's sands to Coruscant's spires, witness how different decisions could have changed everything. See familiar faces in unfamiliar roles, as the Force reveals its infinite possibilities. The galaxy you know is but one reality among countless others. In these chronicles, Jedi fall to darkness, while Sith find the light. Empires crumble through mercy, and rebellions rise from unexpected hearts. Ever wondered what stories the galaxy hasn't told yet? What alternate timelines remain unexplored in the official canon? May the Force be with you as you journey through these alternate destinies. The adventure begins now. What if Mace Windu survived his duel with Palpatine? The storm raged outside the Senate building, lightning flashing across the Coruscant skyline. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of ozone and the echo of clashing lightsabers. Mace Windu, battered but unbroken, stood over the fallen form of Chancellor Palpatine. The Sith Lord's face was twisted in pain, his hands crackling with the last remnants of dark side lightning. Anakin Skywalker, breathless and torn, hovered at the edge of the confrontation. His eyes darted between his mentor and the man he believed could save Padme. The room pulsed with tension, the fate of the galaxy balanced on a knife's edge. Anakin, he's too dangerous to be left alive. Windu's voice was a thunderclap, his amethyst blade poised for the final strike. But Anakin hesitated, the vision of Padme's death gnawing at his resolve. He must stand trial. It's not the Jedi way. Palpatine's lips curled into a snarl. If you kill me, Skywalker, you will never save her. Windu's eyes narrowed, reading the fear in Anakin's soul. In that instant, he made a choice. Not to strike, but to trust. He deactivated his saber, stepping back. You're right, Anakin. The Jedi way is justice, not vengeance. Palpatine, sensing his opportunity slipping, unleashed a final surge of lightning. But Windu, prepared, caught the energy on his blade, channeling it harmlessly into the floor. The doors burst open. Kit Fisto, Agan Kolar, and Saesee rushed in, sabers drawn. Take him into custody, Windu commanded, his voice iron. The Sith Lord was shackled, his power broken. Anakin, shaken but grateful, looked at Windu with new respect. The galaxy had shifted. The news of Palpatine's arrest sent shockwaves through the Senate. The Jedi revealed his true identity as Darth Sidious, presenting evidence of his manipulations and crimes. The Republic reeled, but the truth could not be denied. Padme, relieved and emboldened, spoke before the Senate. We must restore democracy. The Jedi have saved us from tyranny. Bail Organa and Mon Mothma rallied support, and the Senate voted to dissolve the emergency powers. The war-weary galaxy breathed a collective sigh of relief. But the shadows of the Sith lingered. Palpatine, imprisoned in the deepest levels of the Republic Detention Center, plotted his revenge. His influence, though diminished, still reached into the hearts of the fearful and the ambitious. Windu, now Grand Master, led the Jedi Order through a time of reckoning. He called for reforms, opening the Order to new ideas and voices. He met with Padme, Bail, and other leaders, forging a new alliance between Jedi and Republic. Anakin, freed from the grip of prophecy and fear, found peace. He confessed his love for Padme to the Council, expecting exile. But Windu, changed by his brush with darkness, showed mercy. Love is not the enemy, Skywalker. Fear is. Anakin and Padme's marriage became public, a symbol of hope and renewal. The Jedi Order, inspired by Windu's example, began to embrace compassion and individuality. But not all were pleased. In the shadows, Mas Amedda and other loyalists conspired to free Palpatine. The Sith Lord's whispers sowed seeds of doubt and division. One night, as Windu meditated in the temple, he felt a tremor in the Force. Visions of fire and ruin haunted his dreams. He summoned Yoda, Obi-Wan, and the Council. "The Sith are not finished," Windu warned. "We must be vigilant." Yoda nodded, his eyes grave. Much darkness remains, but hope there is. The Jedi began to hunt down the remnants of the Sith, their missions taking them to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Windu led from the front, his presence a beacon of strength. On Mustafar, they confronted Count Dooku and General Grievous, ending the Separatist threat. The Clone Wars were over, but the scars remained. Windu visited the clones, thanking them for their service. He advocated for their rights, ensuring they were not discarded after the war. Captain Rex, moved by Windu's compassion, became a leader among his brothers. The Republic, guided by Padme and Bail, began to heal. The Senate passed sweeping reforms, curbing corruption and restoring civil liberties. But Palpatine, ever cunning, escaped his cell with the help of his loyalists. He vanished into the unknown regions, his fate uncertain. Windu, haunted by the Sith Lord's escape, redoubled his efforts. He trained a new generation of Jedi, teaching them not just to fight, but to listen, to heal, to forgive. Anakin, now a master, took on his own Padawan, a spirited youngling named Terra. He taught her the lessons he had learned, that love and fear could coexist, but only hope could conquer the darkness. Years passed. The Jedi Order flourished, its halls filled with laughter and light. The Republic, though imperfect, stood as a beacon of freedom. One evening, as the sun set over Coruscant, Windu stood on the temple balcony, watching the city glow. Yoda joined him, silent and serene. "We did not destroy the darkness," Windu said, his voice soft. "But we gave the galaxy a chance." Yoda smiled. "A chance, all anyone can ask for." In the distance, a new star rose, its light piercing the night. And somewhere, in the endless expanse of the Force, the balance shifted toward hope. Mace Windu really said, "Nah, we doing this by the book." And Palpatine got sent to jail instead of speedrunning the Empire. Anakin out here getting therapy. Jedi Order got a patch update. Yoda just sipping tea. Windu's leadership brought a new era of transparency to the Jedi Order. The council chambers, once shrouded in secrecy, now welcomed voices from all ranks. Padawans and knights were encouraged to speak openly, and the Order's archives were made accessible to the public. The Jedi became not just warriors, but diplomats, healers, and teachers. Anakin thrived in this new environment. He and Padme, no longer forced to hide, became a power couple in the Republic. Their home was filled with laughter and the pitter-patter of young twins, Luke and Leia, who showed early signs of Force sensitivity. Anakin often brought them to the temple, where Yoda would regale them with stories, and R2-D2 beeped along in approval. Meanwhile, Palpatine's absence left a power vacuum. The Senate, free from his manipulation, struggled to find its footing. Mas Amedda and other loyalists tried to stir unrest, but Padme's calm leadership and Bail Organa's steady hand kept the Republic united. The people, weary from war, embraced the Jedi as protectors and guides. But the shadow of the Sith was not so easily banished. In the unknown regions, Palpatine gathered followers, disgraced politicians, rogue Sith acolytes, and mercenaries. He began to rebuild, his mind ever plotting. Through the Force, he reached out to those susceptible to fear and anger, planting seeds of doubt. Windu sensed this darkness. He traveled to distant worlds, seeking out rumors of Sith activity. On Datomir, he met with the Night Sisters, forging an uneasy alliance. Mother Talzin, wary but intrigued, agreed to share information in exchange for Jedi protection from slavers and bounty hunters. Back on Coruscant, the Jedi Temple became a hub of learning and culture. Artisans, scholars, and musicians mingled with Jedi, sharing knowledge and joy. The Order's new motto, "The Force is for all," became a rallying cry across the galaxy. Obi-Wan, ever the diplomat, was sent to Mandalore to broker peace between rival clans. With Bo-Katan's help, he established a lasting truce, and Mandalore joined the Republic as a sovereign ally. The Mandalorians, inspired by the Jedi's example, sent their own younglings to train at the temple. As the years passed, Windu's hair turned silver, but his resolve never wavered. He took on a new Padawan, a Zabrak named Jaro, whose fierce loyalty reminded him of his own youth. Together they traveled to the Outer Rim, quelling uprisings and spreading hope. One fateful day, a coded message reached the temple. Palpatine had resurfaced, leading a fleet of warships from the shadows. His voice, broadcast across the HoloNet, was a chilling reminder of the past. Citizens of the Republic, you have been deceived. The Jedi are not your saviors, they are your jailers. Join me, and together we will restore order. The galaxy trembled. Old wounds reopened, and fear spread like wildfire. Windu called an emergency session of the Council. Anakin, Padme, Obi-Wan, and Yoda joined him, their faces grim. "We cannot let fear rule us," Windu declared. "We must face this threat with courage and unity." The Jedi mobilized, reaching out to allies old and new. The clones, now free citizens, volunteered to defend the Republic. Mandalorians, Wookiees, and Twi'leks joined the cause. Even the Night Sisters sent warriors. Their magics are potent weapons against the Sith. The final battle took place above the planet Jakku. Palpatine's fleet, bristling with firepower, clashed with the combined forces of the Republic. Starfighters danced among the stars, and the sky burned with the fury of war. Windu led the assault, his purple blade a beacon in the chaos. He faced Palpatine on the bridge of the flagship, their duel a storm of light and shadow. The Sith Lord, older but no less cunning, fought with desperation. "You cannot destroy me, Windu," Palpatine hissed. "The dark side is eternal." Windu's eyes blazed. The dark side is a choice, and today the galaxy chooses hope. Their blades clashed, sparks flying. Anakin, sensing his old enemy's weakness, joined the fight. Together, Master and Knight pressed the attack, their bond unbreakable. Palpatine, cornered and defeated, unleashed a final torrent of lightning. Windu absorbed the energy, channeling it into the Force. Anakin disarmed the Sith Lord, and together they placed him in stasis. The war was over. The galaxy, battered but unbroken, celebrated its freedom. Windu, weary but triumphant, addressed the Senate. "We have faced the darkness and emerged stronger. Let us build a future worthy of our sacrifices." The Jedi Order, forever changed, became a symbol of hope and unity. The Republic, guided by compassion and wisdom, entered a new golden age. And somewhere, in the endless expanse of the Force, the balance held. Windu and Anakin really tag-teamed Palpatine like it was WWE. Jedi Order got a rebrand, Mandos vibing, and the Senate finally doing their job. Palpatine caught that L twice. Yoda just chillin'. Balance this is. Story 3, character count 10,600. Ready to continue with the next section of this story, picking up exactly where I left off, until the full 20,150 characters are reached. Just say continue. The aftermath of the final battle rippled through every corner of the galaxy. The Republic, once fractured by war and fear, began to heal in earnest. Windu, now a living legend, was invited to speak at the dedication of the new Galactic Unity Memorial on Coruscant. The plaza overflowed with beings of every species, clones in crisp uniforms, Mandalorians in gleaming armor, Twi'lek dancers, and even a delegation of Night Sisters, their faces painted in intricate patterns. Windu's speech was simple but powerful. We are not defined by our darkness, but by our willingness to reach for the light. The Force is with all of us, not just the Jedi. Let us remember that unity is our greatest strength. The crowd erupted in applause, and for the first time in decades, hope felt real and tangible. In the months that followed, the Jedi Order continued its transformation. The Council, once a closed circle, now included representatives from allied worlds and even non-Force users. Padme, as Chancellor, worked closely with Windu and Yoda to ensure the Republic's new constitution protected the rights of all beings, including clones and droids. Anakin, embracing his role as both Jedi and father, spent his days training younglings and his evenings with Padme, Luke, and Leia. The twins, growing fast, showed remarkable talent with the Force. Luke was curious and adventurous, while Leia was wise beyond her years, already mediating code playground disputes with a diplomat's poise. Obi-Wan, ever the wanderer, took to traveling the galaxy as a Jedi ambassador. He visited worlds scarred by war, helping to rebuild and offering counsel. On Mandalore, he and Bo-Katan established a Jedi-Mandalorian exchange program, blending the best of both cultures. The first Mandalorian Jedi in centuries, a young woman named Vera Kryze, soon became a symbol of the new era. Windu, though celebrated, never lost his humility. He spent time in the temple gardens, meditating and teaching. His Padawan, Jaro, grew into a formidable knight, known for his compassion and sense of justice. Together, they led missions to the Outer Rim, rooting out the last vestiges of Sith influence and helping worlds recover from the scars of war. But the galaxy was not without challenges. Pirates, warlords, and opportunists tried to exploit the new peace. On the smuggler's moon of Nar Shaddaa, Windu and Jaro confronted a syndicate led by the notorious Hondo Ohnaka. The encounter was less a battle and more a negotiation, with Hondo ultimately agreeing to a truce in exchange for amnesty and a lucrative shipping contract. Meanwhile, Palpatine's fate became the stuff of legend. Some said he was imprisoned in a secret Jedi vault. Others whispered he had escaped to the unknown regions, plotting his return. But the galaxy, for the first time in generations, was not afraid. The Jedi Order's new philosophy spread far and wide. Temples were established on distant worlds, each reflecting the culture and needs of its people. On Kashyyyk, Wookiee Jedi taught younglings to listen to the trees. On Ryloth, Twi'lek Jedi blended dance and lightsaber forms into a new martial art. The Force was no longer a mystery, but a living, breathing part of daily life. Windu, reflecting on all that had changed, often met with Yoda in the temple's highest spire. The two masters would sit in silence, watching the city lights and feeling the gentle hum of the Force. Much to learn, we still have, Yoda would say, his eyes twinkling. Windu would nod, a rare smile on his lips. But for the first time, I believe we're on the right path. As the years passed, Windu's legend only grew. Statues were raised in his honor, but he cared little for such things. He found joy in teaching, in seeing his students surpass him, in knowing that the order would endure. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of gold and crimson, Windu stood on the temple balcony with Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Yoda. The city stretched out before them, alive with possibility. "We did it," Anakin said softly, his arm around Padme as their children played nearby. Windu looked at his friends, his family, and the world they had saved. "No, Anakin, we all did it, together." And somewhere, in the endless expanse of the Force, the balance held, brighter than ever. Windu out here getting statues, but just wants to chill in the garden. Jedi Order got that everyone's invited energy. Hondo Ohnaka finessed a government contract. Yoda still dropping wisdom like it's hot. Galaxy on easy mode. The years rolled on, and the galaxy's wounds slowly healed. The Jedi Order, once a symbol of distant authority, became a living part of the Republic's daily life. Jedi could be found mediating disputes in the Senate, tending to the sick in city hospitals, and teaching in schools from Coruscant to Lothal. The Order's new creed, "The Force is for all," became a guiding principle for the Republic's citizens. Windu, now the eldest of the Council, watched as his Padawan Jaro was knighted in a ceremony attended by beings from every world. Jaro's first mission as a knight was to lead a team to the Outer Rim, where rumors of a Sith cult had surfaced. Windu, trusting in his students' wisdom, sent him with a blessing and a reminder: lead with your heart, not just your saber. Meanwhile, Anakin and Padme's children, Luke and Leia, grew into their own legends. Luke, ever the explorer, traveled to ancient Jedi sites, uncovering lost knowledge and sharing it with the Order. Leia, a natural leader, became the youngest senator in Republic history, her speeches inspiring hope and unity. Obi-Wan, now a revered elder, continued his travels, often accompanied by Vera Kryze, the Mandalorian Jedi. Their partnership became a model for interplanetary cooperation, and soon Jedi-Mandalorian teams were a common sight on peacekeeping missions. The Republic, under Padme's wise leadership, flourished. New worlds joined the Senate, and old rivalries faded. The clones, now respected citizens, established their own settlements and even sent representatives to the Senate. Captain Rex, now a general, led the Republic's defense forces, his loyalty to the Jedi unshaken. But the galaxy was never without shadows. In the unknown regions, whispers of Palpatine's return persisted. Some believed he had become a wraith, haunting the dreams of those who sought power. Others claimed he had been redeemed, wandering the stars in search of forgiveness. Windu, ever vigilant, kept a watchful eye on the horizon, ready for whatever darkness might arise. One day, a distress call reached the temple from the distant world of Ilum. The planet, sacred to the Jedi for its Kyber crystals, was under attack by a mysterious fleet. Windu, Jaro, Anakin, and Vera led a task force to defend the world. The battle was fierce, the sky above Ilum ablaze with star fire. Windu and Jaro fought side by side, their sabers a blur of amethyst and green. Anakin and Vera led the ground forces, rallying Jedi and Mandalorians alike. At the heart of the enemy fleet, Windu confronted the leader, a masked figure wielding a crimson blade. The duel was brutal, the air crackling with the power of the dark side. But Windu, drawing on decades of wisdom and the strength of his allies, prevailed. He disarmed the foe, revealing a lost Jedi who had fallen to despair. Windu knelt beside the defeated enemy, offering a hand. "You are not alone. The darkness is not the end." The lost Jedi wept, accepting Windu's help. The battle ended, and Ilum was saved. Returning to Coruscant, Windu addressed the Order. "We are not just guardians of peace. We are healers, teachers, and friends. The Force binds us all, in light and in shadow." The Jedi, inspired by his words, redoubled their efforts to bring hope to every corner of the galaxy. As Windu's years drew to a close, he spent more time in the temple gardens, surrounded by younglings eager for his stories. He watched as Jaro became a master, as Luke and Leia shaped the future, as the Republic thrived. On his final day, Windu stood on the temple balcony, the city bathed in golden light. Yoda, now a spirit in the Force, appeared beside him. "Rest you have earned, old friend," Yoda said, his voice gentle. Windu smiled, feeling the warmth of the Force embrace him. The galaxy is in good hands. He closed his eyes, his spirit joining the countless Jedi who had come before. And somewhere, in the endless expanse of the Force, the balance held, brighter than ever. Windu really went from by the book to by the heart. Jedi Order got that community center energy. Palpatine out here ghosting like a bad ex. Yoda's Force ghost just chilling, retirement goals. Galaxy on wholesome mode. What if Lando Calrissian never betrayed Han on Cloud City? The Millennium Falcon soared through the swirling clouds of Bespin, its engines humming with the promise of safety. Han Solo, ever the skeptic, eyed the city's gleaming spires with suspicion as they approached the landing platform. Chewbacca grumbled, his fur bristling with unease. Leia Organa, her hair perfectly braided despite days on the run, peered out the viewport. "Are you sure we can trust your friend Han?" Han flashed his trademark grin, but there was a flicker of doubt in his eyes. "Lando's a scoundrel, but he's not a traitor. He owes me." The Falcon touched down, and the ramp hissed open. Lando Calrissian, resplendent in his cape, strode forward with arms wide. "Han, you old pirate, welcome to Cloud City." The reunion was warm, laughter echoing across the platform. Lando greeted Leia with a gallant bow, and Chewbacca with a hearty handshake. C-3PO, ever the worrier, muttered about the city's security protocols, but even he seemed to relax as Lando led them inside. But as they walked the corridors, Lando's smile faded. He pulled Han aside, his voice low. "There's trouble, Han. The Empire's been sniffing around. They want you and the princess." Han's hand hovered near his blaster. "You didn't make a deal, did you?" Lando shook his head, determination in his eyes. "Not this time. I'm done playing by their rules. You're my friend, Han. I won't sell you out." Relief washed over Han, but Leia's eyes narrowed. "What's the plan then?" Lando grinned. "We outsmart them. I've got people loyal to me, and Cloud City's got more tricks than the Empire knows." As the group settled into their quarters, Lando called a secret meeting with his most trusted aides. "The Empire's coming. We need to get Han and his friends out, quietly. And if Vader shows up, we make him regret it." Word spread through the city's underbelly. Ugnaughts, technicians, and even the city's security droids prepared for a covert evacuation. Lando's charm and quick thinking rallied the workers, and soon escape routes were mapped, ships fueled, and false signals readied to confuse Imperial sensors. The next day, Imperial shuttles descended, their black hulls gleaming in the sun. Stormtroopers marched through the halls, led by the imposing figure of Darth Vader. Lando met them at the docking bay, his face a mask of polite indifference. "Welcome to Cloud City, Lord Vader. I trust your journey was pleasant." Vader's mechanical breathing filled the silence. You know why I am here, Calrissian. Do not test my patience. Lando bowed, hiding his fear. Of course, but I'm afraid Solo and his friends have already left. My security team is searching the city as we speak. Vader's eyes narrowed. You would betray the Empire. Lando straightened, his voice steady. I'm loyal to my people and to my friends. Vader raised a gloved hand, but before he could act, alarms blared. The city's power grid flickered and smoke billowed from the lower levels. Lando's sabotage teams had struck, disabling Imperial communications and locking down the hangars. Han, Leia, Chewbacca, and the droids raced through hidden passages, guided by Lando's most trusted aide, Lobot. Stormtroopers gave chase, but the city's workers blocked their path at every turn. Ugnaughts flooded the corridors with steam, and security droids herded troopers into dead ends. In the chaos, Han and Leia reached the Falcon. Chewbacca roared as he fired up the engines, and C-3PO wailed as blaster bolts ricocheted off the hull. Lando sprinted onto the ramp, cape billowing. "Let's go," he shouted, slamming the hatch as Vader's saber carved through the smoke behind them. The Falcon blasted free, weaving through TIE fighters and cloud cars. Lando took the co-pilot's seat, his hands flying over the controls. "Hang on, everyone." Leia fired the quad lasers, picking off pursuers. Han grinned, adrenaline surging. "Remind me to never doubt you again, Lando." The Falcon dove into the clouds, vanishing from Imperial sensors. Behind them, Cloud City erupted in rebellion. Workers and citizens rose up, driving the stormtroopers out. Vader, furious, was forced to retreat, his plans in ruins. Safe in hyperspace, the crew caught their breath. Lando, still catching his, looked at Han. "You owe me, Solo." Han laughed. "Put it on my tab." Leia smiled, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you, Lando. You saved us all." Lando shrugged, a rare humility in his voice. "Sometimes you have to do the right thing, even if it's not the easy thing." The Falcon set course for the rebel fleet, carrying not just its usual crew, but a new ally. Lando's decision sent ripples through the galaxy. News of Cloud City's defiance inspired other worlds to resist the Empire. The rebellion gained new recruits, and the tide of war began to turn. Vader, humiliated, reported his failure to the Emperor. Palpatine's anger was cold and sharp. "You have disappointed me, Lord Vader. The rebellion grows stronger because of your weakness." Vader bowed, but inside, a storm raged. He vowed to hunt down Solo, Organa, and Calrissian, no matter the cost. Meanwhile, Lando became a hero among the rebels. His knowledge of Imperial protocols and his network of contacts proved invaluable. He led daring raids, sabotaged supply lines, and smuggled refugees to safety. Han and Leia's relationship deepened, forged in the fires of danger and trust. Chewbacca, ever loyal, became Lando's staunchest defender. Their banter, a source of endless amusement for the crew. As the war escalated, Lando's leadership shone. He was appointed a general in the Rebel Alliance, his charisma and tactical genius turning the tide in key battles. At the Battle of Endor, it was Lando who led the assault on the second Death Star, his piloting skills legendary. The Falcon, with Han, Leia, Chewbacca, and Lando at the helm, became a symbol of hope. Their friendship, tested and strengthened by adversity, inspired others to stand up to tyranny. After the Empire's fall, Lando returned to Cloud City, hailed as a liberator. He rebuilt the city, ensuring it remained a haven for the free and the bold. Han and Leia, now leaders in the New Republic, often visited, their children playing in the city's sunlit plazas. Lando, ever the gambler, never lost his sense of adventure. But he knew that the greatest risk he ever took was choosing loyalty over self-preservation. That choice changed the fate of the galaxy. And somewhere in the endless expanse of stars, the Falcon soared, its crew united, its legacy secure. Lando really said, "Not today, Vader," and turned Cloud City into the rebellion's Airbnb. Han's tab just keeps growing. Chewie and Lando bromance unlocked. Empire got evicted. Palpatine somewhere like, "Who hired this guy?" The legend of Lando Calrissian's stand at Cloud City spread like wildfire. HoloNet news feeds replayed images of workers and droids outsmarting stormtroopers, and the story of a city that defied the Empire became a rallying cry for oppressed worlds. Lando's face, once known only in gambling dens and sabacc tournaments, now appeared on recruitment posters and rebel broadcasts. The Empire, stung by the loss, cracked down on other independent systems, but Lando's example gave hope to smugglers, miners, and merchants who had long lived in fear. On Ord Mantell, a group of freighter captains staged a walkout, refusing to transport Imperial goods. On Corellia, shipbuilders sabotaged Star Destroyers under construction. Even on Tatooine, whispers of rebellion reached the ears of the most unlikely scoundrels. Meanwhile, the Millennium Falcon became a mobile command center for the rebellion's most daring missions. Lando, Han, Leia, and Chewbacca formed an unbreakable team. Their camaraderie was legendary. Han's reckless plans, Leia's sharp strategy, Chewbacca's brute strength, and Lando's silver tongue made them unstoppable. One night, as the Falcon drifted in the shadow of a shattered moon, the crew gathered in the lounge. Lando poured a round of Corellian whiskey, raising his glass. To friends who don't sell each other out, he toasted, grinning. Han clinked his glass. And to friends who know how to throw a party, Leia smiled, her eyes soft. And to Hope, because of you, Lando, the galaxy believes again. Chewbacca roared his agreement, and even C-3PO managed a cheerful beep. But the war was far from over. The Empire struck back with a vengeance, targeting Cloud City with a blockade. Lando, refusing to abandon his people, organized a daring supply run. The Falcon, loaded with food and medicine, slipped past Star Destroyers with the help of Lobot and a squadron of cloud cars. The blockade runners became heroes, their exploits inspiring a new generation of rebels. Lando's leadership was tested as never before. He negotiated with Hutt cartels, outwitted Imperial spies, and even convinced a band of bounty hunters to switch sides, after a high-stakes sabacc game, of course. As the rebellion prepared for its greatest challenge, the assault on the second Death Star, Lando was chosen to lead the starfighter attack. His reputation as a gambler and risk-taker made him the perfect choice for a mission that seemed impossible. Before the battle, Lando visited Cloud City one last time. The people lined the streets, cheering their hero. Lobot, ever the loyal friend, handed Lando a data chip. "For luck," Lobot said, his voice calm. Lando smiled, tucking the chip into his vest. "I'll bring it back, old friend." The Battle of Endor was chaos and glory. Lando, at the helm of the Falcon, led the charge through the Death Star's superstructure. Han and Leia, coordinating the ground assault, trusted Lando with their lives. As the station exploded in a fireball of light, Lando whooped with joy, the Falcon barely escaping the blast. The galaxy erupted in celebration. The Empire was defeated and freedom restored. In the aftermath, Lando was offered a seat on the New Republic's ruling council. He declined, preferring the thrill of adventure to the grind of politics. Instead, he became the Republic's unofficial ambassador, traveling from world to world, spreading hope and rebuilding trust. Cloud City flourished, its halls filled with music and laughter. Lando established a foundation for war orphans, ensuring that every child had a chance to dream. He hosted galas and charity sabacc tournaments, his charm raising millions for the cause. Han and Leia, now married, often visited with their children. The Falcon, ever the heart of their adventures, remained a symbol of friendship and resilience. Years later, as Lando watched the sunset from his penthouse, he reflected on the choice he had made. He had risked everything for his friends, and in doing so, had found a purpose greater than himself. The galaxy, forever changed, remembered the day Cloud City stood tall. And somewhere, in the endless expanse of stars, the Falcon soared, its crew united, its legacy secure. Lando went from city manager to galactic MVP. Blockade, he speedran it. Bounty hunters, recruited. Sabacc for charity, only Lando. Han and Leia got the best babysitter. Empire just rage quitting. Cloud City up. Lando's legend only grew as the years passed. The New Republic, eager to honor its heroes, offered him medals, monuments, and even a seat in the Senate. Lando, ever the charmer, accepted the accolades with a wink, but never let them slow him down. He preferred the thrill of the unknown, the hum of the Falcon's engines, and the laughter of friends over the stuffy halls of government. Cloud City became a beacon for the free-spirited and the hopeful. Refugees from war-torn worlds found sanctuary in its floating towers. Lando established scholarships for young engineers and pilots, ensuring that the city's future would be built by dreamers and doers. The annual Freedom Festival drew beings from across the galaxy, with Lando presiding over the festivities in a new cape every year. Han and Leia's children, Jason and Jaina, grew up racing cloud cars through the city's misty canyons, their laughter echoing off the Durasteel walls. Chewbacca became a local legend, his stories of Kashyyyk and the rebellion captivating younglings and adults alike. Even C-3PO found a niche, teaching etiquette classes to the city's ever-growing population of droids. But Lando's greatest joy was in the friendships he had forged. He and Han remained inseparable, their banter the stuff of legend. Leia, now a respected leader in the New Republic, often sought Lando's counsel on matters of diplomacy and strategy. The Falcon, lovingly maintained and upgraded, was always ready for the next adventure. One day, a mysterious transmission reached Cloud City. A lost fleet from the Clone Wars era had been discovered drifting near the Maw, its ships intact, but its crew missing. The New Republic needed someone with Lando's unique blend of charm, cunning, and luck to investigate. Lando assembled a team: Han, Chewbacca, Lobot, and a new generation of pilots eager to prove themselves. The mission was perilous. The Maw's gravity wells and black holes a constant threat. But Lando's steady hand and quick thinking saw them through. Aboard the ghostly flagship, Lando uncovered a secret. The fleet's crew had been placed in stasis, victims of a failed experiment by a rogue Kaminoan scientist. With Han and Chewbacca's help, Lando revived the crew and negotiated their return to the New Republic. The grateful survivors hailed him as a hero, and the fleet's advanced technology gave the Republic a crucial edge in the years to come. Back on Cloud City, Lando was greeted as a savior. The city's citizens lined the walkways, cheering as the Falcon touched down. Lobot, ever the loyal friend, presented Lando with a new cape, this one woven with the colors of every world he had helped. As the sun set over the city, Lando stood on his balcony, the wind tugging at his cape. He raised a glass to the stars, his heart full. To friends, to freedom, and to the next adventure, he toasted, his voice carrying on the breeze. The galaxy, forever changed by one man's choice, looked to the future with hope. And somewhere, in the endless expanse of stars, the Falcon soared, its crew united its legacy secure. Lando's twilight years were marked not by retirement, but by mentorship. He took under his wing a diverse group of young pilots and diplomats, teaching them the art of negotiation, the thrill of risk, and the importance of loyalty. Among them was a spirited Twi'lek named Vexa, whose quick wit and daring maneuvers reminded Lando of his younger self. Cloud City thrived as a cultural and political hub, its floating platforms a symbol of resilience and freedom. Lando often hosted gatherings where stories of the rebellion's victories were shared and plans for the New Republic's future were forged. The city's skyline glittered with lights from countless celebrations, a testament to the enduring spirit of its people. Han and Leia's children, now young adults, carried forward their parents' legacy. Jaqen became a skilled pilot and strategist, while Jaina excelled in diplomacy and leadership. Their bond with Lando was unbreakable, a family forged not just by blood, but by shared trials and triumphs. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, Lando stood on the balcony of his penthouse, gazing out over the city. The air was filled with the scent of exotic flowers and the distant hum of cloud cars. He felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that his choices had shaped a better galaxy. A soft voice interrupted his thoughts. Vexa approached, holding a hollow projector. General Calrissian, there's a message from the New Republic Council. They want you to attend the centennial celebration of the rebellion's victory. Lando chuckled, a twinkle in his eye. Tell them I'll be there. Wouldn't miss it for the galaxy. As the stars emerged, Lando raised his glass once more. To friends, to freedom, and to the adventures yet to come. The galaxy, forever changed by one man's courage and loyalty, looked to the future with hope. And somewhere, in the endless expanse of stars, the Falcon soared, its crew united, its legacy eternal. Lando out here mentoring the next gen, throwing parties and still stealing the show. Cloud City's unofficial mayor, Galaxy's favorite gambler. Han and Leia's kids got the best godfather. Falcon's still flying strong. Empire who? Lando's journey to the centennial celebration was a spectacle in itself. The New Republic sent a gleaming shuttle, piloted by a young Bothan who had grown up on stories of the Falcon's daring escapes. As the shuttle soared through hyperspace, Lando gazed out at the swirling blue tunnel, his mind drifting back to the days when every jump was a gamble and every landing a new beginning. The capital was alive with celebration. Banners bearing the sigils of the rebellion and the New Republic fluttered from every spire. Holo displays replayed the moment the second Death Star exploded, and children in makeshift capes reenacted the Battle of Endor in the plazas. Lando was greeted by old friends, Wedge Antilles, Mon Mothma, and even a grizzled Admiral Akbar, who insisted on one more round of sabak. The ceremony was held in the Grand Rotunda, a vast chamber filled with beings from every corner of the galaxy. Leia, now Chancellor, delivered a stirring speech about unity, sacrifice, and the power of hope. Han, ever the reluctant hero, stood at her side, his arm around her shoulders, and a proud smile on his face. When Lando was called to the stage, the applause was thunderous. He accepted the medal with a flourish, bowing low and flashing his trademark grin. I never thought I'd see the day when a scoundrel like me would be standing here, he quipped, earning laughter and cheers. After the ceremony, Lando slipped away from the crowds, seeking a moment of quiet. He wandered the gardens, the air fragrant with blossoms from Alderaan, Naboo, and countless other worlds. He found Leia sitting on a bench, her eyes closed as she listened to the distant music. Mind if I join you? Lando asked, settling beside her. Leia smiled, her face lined with wisdom and kindness. You're always welcome, Lando. I was just thinking about how far we've come. Lando nodded, his gaze distant. We've lost a lot, but we've gained even more. Leia reached over, squeezing his hand. Thank you for never giving up on us, on any of us. Lando chuckled. I had a good teacher. You, Han, Chewie, even Luke. You all taught me what it means to fight for something bigger than myself. They sat in companionable silence, the weight of history settling around them like a warm blanket. As the celebration continued, Lando was approached by a group of young cadets. They peppered him with questions about the old days, how he'd outwitted Boba Fett, what it was like to fly the Falcon, and whether the stories about his capes were true. Lando regaled them with tales of narrow escapes, impossible odds, and the importance of trusting your friends. He saw in their eyes the same spark that had driven him all those years ago, a hunger for adventure, a belief that anything was possible. That night, as fireworks lit up the sky, Lando stood on the balcony of his guest suite, watching the colors dance across the city. He thought of all the friends he'd made, the battles fought, the risks taken. He felt a deep sense of gratitude for the life he'd lived, the people he'd loved, and the galaxy he'd helped save. But Lando was never one to rest on his laurels. The next morning, he was up before dawn, meeting with New Republic officials about a new initiative to bring aid to the Outer Rim. He argued passionately for investment in infrastructure, education, and healthcare, insisting that the promise of the rebellion must reach every world, not just the core. His efforts bore fruit. Within months, Cloud City became the hub of a vast network of relief missions. Lando personally oversaw the first convoy, piloting the lead ship himself. The people of the Outer Rim greeted him as a hero, their gratitude a reminder that the fight for freedom was never truly over. As the years passed, Lando's legend grew. Statues were raised in his honor, but he always insisted that the real heroes were the ones who never made the history books, the mechanics, the medics, the teachers, and the dreamers. He continued to mentor young leaders, sharing his wisdom and experience. Vexa, now a respected pilot in her own right, often joined him on missions. Her laughter and daring maneuvers a source of endless pride. On the anniversary of the Battle of Endor, Lando hosted a grand celebration in Cloud City. Old friends and new allies gathered to share stories, toast to the future, and remember those who had fallen. The city's towers glowed with light, and music filled the air. As the night wore on, Lando found himself alone on the observation deck, gazing out at the stars. He felt the presence of those who had gone before: Han, Leia, Chewbacca, and even Luke, whose spirit seemed to linger in the Force. He raised his glass one final time, to the ones we've lost, to the ones we've found, and to the adventures that await. The galaxy, forever changed by one man's courage and loyalty, looked to the future with hope. And somewhere, in the endless expanse of stars, the Falcon soared, its crew united, its legacy eternal. Lando's influence reached far beyond Cloud City. As the New Republic matured, he became a trusted envoy, traveling to worlds on the edge of civilization where old Imperial warlords still clung to power. His reputation as a man who had stood up to the Empire and won opened doors that even the most seasoned diplomats could not. He negotiated peace between feuding mining guilds on Kessel, brokered trade deals with the Mon Calamari, and even convinced a stubborn Hutt clan to join the galactic reconstruction effort, all with a smile and a well-timed joke. His adventures were not without danger. On a mission to the lawless planet of Ord Talon, Lando and Vexa were ambushed by pirates seeking to ransom the famous general. With quick thinking and a hidden blaster, Lando turned the tables, outwitting the pirates and escaping with not only his freedom, but a new fleet of liberated freighters for the Republic's cause. Vexa, exhilarated by the close call, declared it the best day of her life. And Lando couldn't help but laugh, remembering his own youthful hunger for risk. Back on Cloud City, Lando's home became a gathering place for the galaxy's most interesting characters. Smugglers, senators, Jedi, and artists mingled at his legendary soirees. The walls of his penthouse were lined with hollows of friends and allies, each with a story. Some heroic, some hilarious, all cherished. He kept a special place for Han and Leia, their family forever entwined with his own. As the decades passed, Lando watched the galaxy change. The children of the rebellion grew into leaders, and the ideals they had fought for became the foundation of a new era. Jaqen and Jaina Solo, now respected figures in their own right, often sought Lando's advice. He taught them that leadership was not about power, but about trust, and that sometimes the greatest victories came from taking a chance on someone else. Vexa, too, rose to prominence. She became the youngest commander in the New Republic's Starfighter Corps. Her daring tactics and unorthodox style winning battles that others thought lost. Lando was proud, but he never let her forget the importance of humility and heart. A good pilot knows when to pull up, he'd say, but a great one knows when to reach out. On the 100th anniversary of the Rebellion's victory, Cloud City hosted the largest celebration in galactic history. Delegations from every world arrived in ships of every shape and size. The city's platforms were alive with music, dance, and the laughter of children who had never known the shadow of the Empire. Lando, now silver-haired but still sharp as ever, stood at the center of it all. He gave a speech that was broadcast to every corner of the galaxy, his words a reminder of the power of hope and the strength of unity. "We are the sum of our choices," he said, his voice steady and warm. "We are the friends we keep, the risks we take, and the dreams we dare to chase. The galaxy is vast, and the future is unwritten. But as long as we stand together, there's nothing we can't do." The crowd erupted in cheers, and fireworks lit up the sky. Lando looked up, his heart full, and for a moment he thought he saw the Falcon soaring among the stars. Han at the helm, Chewbacca roaring in triumph, and Leia smiling with pride. As the festivities wound down, Lando slipped away to the observation deck, Vexa at his side. They watched the sunrise over the city, the clouds painted gold and pink. "Do you ever regret it?" Vexa asked quietly. "Turning your back on the Empire, risking everything for your friends?" Lando shook his head, a gentle smile on his lips. "Not for a second. The best gamble I ever made." Vexa grinned. "Then here's to the next adventure." They clinked glasses, the sound ringing out over the city, a promise that the spirit of the rebellion would never fade. Lando's legacy became woven into the very fabric of the New Republic. His name was spoken with reverence in the halls of government and with affection in the cantinas and marketplaces of 1,000 worlds. Statues of him, always depicted with a sly grin and a billowing cape, dotted city squares from Coruscant to Corellia. But Lando himself never let the fame go to his head. He remained approachable, always ready with a story, a joke, or a word of encouragement for anyone who needed it. As the years passed, Lando's mentorship bore fruit across the galaxy. Vexa, now an admiral, led a peacekeeping fleet that patrolled the Outer Rim. Her flagship named the Spirit of Cloud City. She often sent Lando hollows from the field, sometimes seeking advice, sometimes just to share a laugh. Jacen and Jaina Solo, now leaders in their own right, credited Lando with teaching them the value of trust and the courage to take risks for the greater good. Cloud City itself became a symbol of hope and renewal. Its floating platforms hosted summits, festivals, and even the first intergalactic youth games, where children from every world competed in friendly contests of skill and daring. Lando presided over the opening ceremonies, his voice booming across the city as he welcomed the next generation of dreamers and doers. One evening, as the city glowed beneath a sky full of fireworks, Lando wandered the walkways, lost in thought. He paused at a memorial garden dedicated to the heroes of the rebellion. There, among the flowers and hollow plaques, he found a quiet bench and sat down, gazing up at the stars. He remembered the first time he had met Han Solo, the thrill of a high-stakes sabacc game, the wild chase through the asteroid field, and the moment he'd chosen friendship over fear on the day the Empire came to Cloud City. He thought of Leia's fierce determination, Chewbacca's unwavering loyalty, and the countless others who had fought and sacrificed for a better galaxy. A gentle breeze stirred the air, carrying the distant sound of music and laughter. Lando closed his eyes, letting the memories wash over him. He felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that his choices had mattered, that he had helped shape a future where hope could flourish. As dawn approached, Vexa found him in the garden. She sat beside him, her presence a comfort. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked, her voice soft. Lando smiled, just thinking about old friends, about how far we've come. Vexa nodded, her eyes shining. "You gave us all a chance, Lando. You showed us what it means to believe in something bigger than ourselves." He chuckled, shaking his head. "I just did what felt right. The real credit goes to everyone who kept fighting, even when the odds were against us." They sat in companionable silence, watching the first rays of sunlight paint the clouds in shades of gold and rose. As the city awoke, Lando stood and stretched, feeling the years in his bones, but the fire still in his heart. He looked at Vexa, pride and affection in his gaze. "Ready for another day?" he asked. She grinned. "Always." Together, they walked back toward the heart of the city, where new challenges and new adventures awaited. In the years that followed, Lando continued to serve as an ambassador, a mentor, and a friend. He traveled to distant worlds, forging alliances and spreading the message of hope. He never lost his love for a good gamble, but he always bet on people, and more often than not, he won. On the day he finally retired, the galaxy celebrated with a festival unlike any other. Ships from every system filled the skies above Cloud City, their lights twinkling like stars. Old friends and new allies gathered to honor the man who had helped turn the tide of history. Lando, ever the showman, took the stage one last time. He thanked the crowd, told a few stories, and reminded everyone that the future belonged to those who dared to dream. As the sun set, he slipped away from the festivities, finding a quiet spot on the city's edge. He looked up at the stars, a contented smile on his lips. And somewhere in the endless expanse of the galaxy, the Millennium Falcon soared, its crew united, its legacy eternal, and the spirit of adventure alive in every heart that dared to hope. Lando really went from just a cape and a smile to galactic legend. Cloud City got more festivals than the Empire had elves. Vexa and the squad carrying the torch. Falcon still undefeated. Lando's luck? Perma-buffed. What if Captain Phasma had been raised by Ewoks? The silver-armored figure stood motionless in the command center of the First Order dreadnought. But beneath the gleaming chrome exterior, Captain Phasma's mind wandered to memories of towering trees and primitive drums echoing through moonlit forests. Her fingers unconsciously tapped against her blaster in the rhythm of ancient Ewok war chants, a habit she'd never been able to break despite decades of Imperial conditioning. Captain Phasma. General Hux's voice crackled through the comm system, sharp and demanding. Report to the bridge immediately. We have a situation with the Resistance prisoners. Phasma's helmet turned toward the communication panel, her voice emerging in its usual mechanical monotone. Acknowledged, General. En route. But as she strode through the sterile corridors of the ship, her thoughts drifted back to a time when her world had been filled with the warmth of fur and the comfort of tribal bonds. 30 years earlier, a young girl named Phasma had crash-landed on the forest moon of Endor during a routine transport mission gone wrong. Her parents, minor Imperial officers, had perished in the wreckage, leaving her alone and terrified in the dense undergrowth. The Ewoks who found her should have been suspicious of any human, especially one wearing Imperial insignia, but something about the frightened child touched their hearts. Wicket W. Warwick, now an elder of Bright Tree Village, had been the one to discover her. Despite the language barrier and cultural differences, he'd seen past her human appearance to the scared youngling beneath. The tribe had debated for hours in their native tongue, their voices rising and falling like wind through leaves, before finally deciding to adopt her as one of their own. Growing up among the Ewoks had shaped Phasma in ways the First Order could never fully understand or erase. She had learned to move silently through forests, to read the subtle signs of nature, and most importantly, to value community and loyalty above personal ambition. The Ewoks had taught her that strength came not from domination, but from protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. Now, as she entered the bridge where Resistance prisoners were being held, Phasma felt the familiar conflict between her programming and her true nature. The prisoners were young, barely more than children, their eyes filled with the same terror she'd once felt as a crash survivor. General Hux stood before them, his pale face twisted with cruel satisfaction. These Resistance spies were caught attempting to sabotage our hyperdrive systems, Hux announced, his voice dripping with disdain. I want them interrogated thoroughly. Use whatever methods necessary to extract information about their base. Phasma nodded curtly, but her mind was racing. Through her helmet's sensors, she could see the prisoners' elevated heart rates, their shallow breathing, the way they huddled together for comfort. It reminded her of young Ewok cubs, seeking protection from predators in the night. Leave them to me, General, she said, her voice betraying nothing of her inner turmoil. I'll handle the interrogation personally. Hux smiled coldly. Excellent. I expect results within the hour. He turned on his heel and left the bridge, leaving Phasma alone with the prisoners and 2 stormtroopers. As soon as Hux was gone, Phasma dismissed the stormtroopers with a curt gesture. I work better without distractions. Guard the entrance. The white armored soldiers saluted and took positions outside the bridge. Alone with the prisoners, Phasma slowly removed her helmet, revealing a face that bore the subtle markings of Ewok tribal tattoos around her eyes. Marks she'd convinced her superiors were battle scars. The prisoners gasped at the unexpected sight. Listen carefully, she whispered, her voice now free of its mechanical filter. I'm going to help you escape, but we don't have much time. The eldest prisoner, a Twi'lek girl who couldn't have been more than 16, stared at her in confusion. Why? Your First Order. You're supposed to be our enemy. Phasma knelt down to the girl's level, her silver armor reflecting the bridge's harsh lighting. Because a long time ago, someone showed me that family isn't about blood or species or allegiance. It's about choosing to protect each other, even when it's dangerous. She began working on their restraints, her fingers moving with the practiced efficiency she had learned from years of crafting tools and weapons in Ewok villages. There's an escape pod 3 levels down. I'm going to create a distraction, and when I do, you run. Don't look back. Don't try to help me. Just get to your people and tell them that not everyone in the First Order is lost." The Twi'lek girl grabbed Phasma's arm as the restraints fell away. "Come with us. You don't have to stay here." For a moment, Phasma's resolve wavered. The thought of returning to Endor, of seeing Wicket again, of living free among the trees, was almost overwhelming, but she shook her head. "My place is here for now. There are others like you who will need help, and I'm the only one positioned to give it." She replaced her helmet and activated the ship's internal alarm system. "Security breach in Section 7, she announced over the comm. "All available units respond immediately." As stormtroopers rushed past the bridge toward the false emergency, Phasma led the prisoners through a series of maintenance corridors she'd memorized during her years of service. Her Ewok training served her well. She moved silently, anticipated patrol routes, and used the ship's own systems against itself. At the escape pod bay, she quickly programmed the pod's navigation system with coordinates for a resistance-friendly system. "Tell your leaders that Captain Phasma sends her regards," she said, sealing them inside the pod. "And tell them that the forest remembers its children." The pod launched into hyperspace just as General Hux arrived with a squad of stormtroopers. "Captain, what happened here?" Phasma turned to face him, her posture rigid and professional. "The prisoners overpowered me during interrogation, General. They had inside knowledge of our security protocols. I suspect we have a spy aboard." Hux's eyes narrowed with suspicion, but Phasma's service record was impeccable. "Very well. Begin a full security sweep of all personnel. I want that spy found." "Of course, General," Phasma replied, already planning how she could use the investigation to help other prisoners and potential defectors. As the weeks passed, Captain Phasma became a ghost within the First Order, outwardly loyal, but secretly working to undermine their operations from within. She used her position to feed intelligence to the Resistance, to ensure that accidents befell the most brutal officers, and to create opportunities for prisoners to escape. Her actions were guided by the lessons she'd learned in Bright Tree Village, that true strength came from lifting others up, that family was chosen rather than assigned, and that even in the darkest places, the light of compassion could still shine. The First Order never suspected that their most decorated captain was actually their greatest enemy, a child of the forest who had never forgotten the warmth of an Ewok's embrace, or the sound of drums calling the tribe home. Years later, when the First Order finally fell, historians would puzzle over the mysterious intelligence leaks and security failures that had plagued the organization. But on Endor, in a village high among the trees, an old Ewok named Wicket would smile knowingly whenever he heard tales of a silver-armored figure who had helped the Resistance win the war. He had always known that the frightened human child they had rescued would grow up to do great things. After all, once you were part of an Ewok family, you were family forever, no matter how far from home you might roam. In the months that followed her first act of rebellion, Captain Phasma developed an intricate network of subtle resistance within the First Order's ranks. She discovered that she wasn't alone in her doubts about the organization's brutal methods. There were others, stormtroopers who questioned orders, technicians who sabotaged equipment just enough to cause delays, and even some officers who had grown weary of the endless cycle of violence and oppression. The key to her success lay in the patience and observation skills the Ewoks had taught her during her formative years. In Bright Tree Village, she had learned to watch the forest for signs of change. The way leaves rustled before a storm, how animals behaved when predators were near, the subtle shifts in wind patterns that indicated weather changes. These same skills served her well in reading people and situations aboard first-order vessels. Lieutenant Mitaka, a young communications officer, had caught her attention during a routine briefing. She noticed how his hands trembled slightly when General Hux gave orders for civilian targets to be eliminated, how his eyes would dart away when discussing interrogation techniques. During a quiet moment in the ship's mess hall, Phasma approached him with the casual air of a superior checking on her subordinates. "Lieutenant," she said, her modulated voice carrying just the right tone of authority mixed with concern. "You seem troubled lately. Is there something affecting your performance?" Mitaka straightened immediately, his training kicking in. "No, Captain. Everything is proceeding according to protocol." But Phasma had learned to read the micro-expressions that people couldn't control, a skill honed during countless hours of hunting with Ewok trackers who could spot the slightest movement in dense undergrowth. She saw the conflict in his eyes, the way his jaw tightened when he mentioned protocol. "Walk with me, Lieutenant," she commanded, leading him to a maintenance corridor where they wouldn't be overheard. Once they were alone, she removed her helmet, a gesture that always surprised those who served under her, as most first-order officers maintained their distance and authority through anonymity. "I'm going to tell you something, Mitaka, and I need you to listen carefully," she began, her natural voice carrying the warmth that her mechanical filter usually concealed. "There are times when following orders conflicts with doing what's right. The question you need to ask yourself is, what kind of person do you want to be when this war is over?" Mitaka's eyes widened at the unexpected philosophical question from his superior officer. "Captain, I'm not sure I understand." Phasma studied his face, seeing the same uncertainty she had felt as a child when the Ewoks first found her, caught between two worlds, unsure of where she belonged. "Let me share something with you. When I was very young, I was lost and alone. A group of beings found me, and they had every reason to see me as their enemy. But instead of turning me away, they chose compassion. They taught me that true strength isn't about dominating others, it's about protecting those who can't protect themselves." Over the following weeks, Phasma carefully cultivated a small but growing network of sympathizers within the ship's crew. She used the same principles the Ewoks had taught her about community building. Start small, build trust gradually, and always put the group's welfare above personal gain. Each recruit was carefully vetted, approached only when she was certain of their doubts about the First Order's methods. Stormtrooper FN 2003, who had shown hesitation during a village raid on Jakku, became one of her most trusted allies. During a private conversation in the armory, he confided his growing disgust with the orders they were given. "I joined because I wanted to bring order to the galaxy," he said, his voice muffled by his helmet. "But this isn't order, it's just cruelty with better organization." Phasma nodded, understanding his conflict. "The Ewoks have a saying," she told him, drawing on the wisdom of her adoptive people. "The tree that grows tallest is the one that bends with the wind." Sometimes survival means appearing to comply while working towards something better. Her network began to operate with the efficiency of an Ewok hunting party. Information flowed through carefully established channels, always disguised as routine communications or maintenance reports. When resistance prisoners were brought aboard, mysterious technical failures would occur in the interrogation chambers. When civilian targets were identified, navigation errors would cause delays that allowed evacuation time. When brutal officers gave particularly heinous orders, they would find themselves reassigned to remote postings or suffering from convenient accidents. The turning point came when the First Order captured a group of refugees fleeing from a planet they had recently conquered. Among them were families with young children, their faces bearing the same expression of terror and confusion that Phasma remembered from her own childhood crash on Endor. General Hux ordered them to be used as leverage against resistance sympathizers in the sector, a tactic that would inevitably result in their deaths regardless of whether information was obtained. That night, Phasma stood in her quarters, staring out at the stars through the viewport. She touched the small wooden charm she wore beneath her armor, a gift from Wicket before she had left Endor to join the Imperial Academy years ago. It was carved in the shape of a tree, symbolizing growth, strength, and the interconnectedness of all living things. She activated her private communication system and sent out a coded message to her network. The forest calls its children home. Within hours, her carefully placed allies throughout the ship began to act. Lieutenant Mitaka created false evacuation orders that led the refugees to escape pods. FN 2003 and several other stormtroopers provided escort, claiming they were following security protocols. Technical failures plagued the ship's systems, creating confusion and delays that prevented immediate pursuit. When General Hux discovered the escape, his rage was volcanic. How did an entire group of prisoners simply vanish from a secured detention block? He screamed at the assembled officers. Phasma stood at attention with the others, her helmet hiding any expression. General, preliminary investigation suggests a coordinated effort by resistance infiltrators. The sophistication of the operation indicates long-term planning and inside knowledge of our procedures. Then find them, Hux snarled. I want every person on this ship investigated. Someone is going to pay for this failure. The investigation that followed was thorough, but ultimately fruitless. Phasma had learned from the Ewoks how to cover tracks, how to make actions appear natural rather than deliberate. Her network had been built with the same principles that governed Ewok society: loyalty, mutual protection, and the understanding that the group's survival depended on each individual's discretion. As months passed, Captain Phasma's double life became increasingly complex. By day, she was the First Order's most decorated officer, leading missions with ruthless efficiency and maintaining the facade of absolute loyalty. By night, she was the guardian angel of prisoners, refugees, and anyone else who fell into the First Order's clutches. Her actions began to have a ripple effect throughout the organization. Other officers, inspired by the mysterious acts of mercy and sabotage, began to question their own roles in the First Order's atrocities. Some joined her network, while others simply became less enthusiastic in carrying out the most brutal orders. The Resistance, meanwhile, began to notice patterns in First Order operations: intelligence leaks that seemed too convenient to be accidental, rescue operations that succeeded against impossible odds, and a gradual decrease in the effectiveness of the First Order's most oppressive tactics. The final confrontation came during the Battle of Exegol, when the First Order's remnants joined forces with the Final Order in a desperate attempt to crush the galaxy under Sith rule. Captain Phasma found herself aboard the command ship, watching as thousands of Star Destroyers prepared to launch their planet-killing weapons against innocent worlds. Standing on the bridge beside General Hux, she felt the weight of every choice that had led her to this moment. The wooden charm beneath her armor seemed to pulse with warmth, reminding her of Wicket's final words before she had left Endor. Remember, little tree, no matter how dark the forest becomes, you carry the light of our village within you. Captain, Hux said, his voice filled with anticipation. Prepare to transmit the final order. Today we reshape the galaxy in our image. Phasma's hand moved to her communication console. But instead of following Hux's command, she activated a different protocol, one she had been preparing for months. Her network throughout the First Order fleet received a single coded transmission. The forest burns, but the seeds survive. Across dozens of ships, her carefully placed allies began their final acts of sabotage. Navigation systems failed, weapon targeting computers malfunctioned, and communication arrays went offline. The coordinated assault that should have been the galaxy's death knell instead became a chaotic mess of disabled vessels and confused commanders. "What's happening?" Hux screamed as reports of system failures flooded in from across the fleet. "How is this possible?" Phasma removed her helmet one final time, her face serene despite the chaos around them. "Because you never understood what the First Order was fighting against, General. You thought it was just the Resistance, but it was something much more powerful. Hope." Hux's eyes widened in shock and rage as he realized the truth. You're the traitor. Guards, arrest her immediately." But the stormtroopers on the bridge hesitated. Many of them were part of Phasma's network, and those who weren't had been influenced by the gradual change in culture she had fostered. For the first time in First Order history, soldiers questioned their orders openly. "I'm not a traitor," Phasma said calmly, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had found their true purpose. "I'm exactly what the First Order trained me to be, a protector. I just chose to protect the right people." The battle raged around them as the Resistance fleet, aided by the mysterious system failures plaguing the First Order, began to gain the upper hand. Phasma used the confusion to send one final transmission to the Resistance command, providing them with the locations of the most critical targets and the access codes needed to disable the remaining functional ships. As the First Order's defeat became inevitable, Phasma made her way to an escape pod, but instead of fleeing to safety, she programmed it with coordinates for Endor. After decades of living a double life, she was finally ready to go home. When the pod touched down in the familiar forests of Endor, Phasma stepped out to find Wicket waiting for her, older now, but still radiating the same warmth she remembered from her childhood. The other Ewoks gathered around, welcoming her home with unconditional acceptance. "Welcome home, little tree," Wicket said in his native language. "The forest has missed you." Phasma embraced her adoptive father, feeling the weight of her armor and burden finally lifting. "I've missed the forest too," she replied, the words flowing naturally despite the years. That night, as the village celebrated her return and the First Order's defeat, Phasma told her story by the fire. The young Ewoks listened as she described the great ships, the battles in space, and the network of heroes who helped bring down tyranny. The part that resonated most was the simplest truth, that lessons learned in a small village among the trees had been powerful enough to change the fate of the entire galaxy. The Ewoks danced and sang, their voices rising into the night, and Phasma felt the peace she had sought for so long settle over her at last. She looked up at the stars through the canopy, knowing that somewhere out there the Resistance was rebuilding, and that hope had taken root in the most unlikely of places. In the years that followed, stories of the silver-armored protector became legend among the Ewoks and the new generations of the Resistance. Children would gather around the fire to hear how a lost child of the Empire became the guardian of the oppressed, and how the smallest acts of kindness could topple the mightiest empires. Phasma, once a symbol of fear, became a symbol of hope, a living bridge between worlds, proof that even in the darkest times, the light of the forest could never be extinguished. And so, in the heart of Endor, beneath the ancient trees, Captain Phasma found her true family and her true self, forever remembered as the Ewok-raised warrior who helped save the galaxy. Yub noob, plot twist nobody saw coming. Phasma really said, "I am one with the Ewoks, and the Ewoks are with me." From Chrome Dome to Forest Gnome, this hits different. Wicket really raised a whole resistance spy. What if Jar Jar Binks had been trained as a Jedi? The meditation chamber aboard the Jedi Temple hummed with quiet energy as Master Qui-Gon Jinn sat across from the most unlikely Padawan in the Order's history. Jar Jar Binks, his gangly limbs folded awkwardly in the lotus position, struggled to maintain the serene composure expected of a Jedi initiate. "Misa trying, Master Qui-Gon," Jar Jar whispered, his large eyes squeezed shut in concentration. "But the Force, it feels like swimming in the big ocean when you don't know how to swim." Qui-Gon's weathered face softened with patience. 3 years had passed since he had made the controversial decision to take the Gungan as his second Padawan alongside young Anakin Skywalker. The Council had been skeptical, but Qui-Gon had sensed something extraordinary beneath Jar Jar's clumsy exterior. A connection to the living Force unlike anything he'd encountered. "The Force flows through all living things, Jar Jar," Qui-Gon said gently. "Your people have always been sensitive to the natural world. Trust in that connection." The breakthrough had come during the Battle of Naboo, when Jar Jar's seemingly random actions had repeatedly turned the tide in their favor. What others dismissed as luck, Qui-Gon recognized as unconscious Force sensitivity. The Gungan's natural empathy and intuitive understanding of life's interconnectedness made him a perfect candidate for Jedi training, despite his unconventional approach. Jar Jar's training had been unlike any other in the Temple's history. Traditional lightsaber forms proved impossible for his unique physiology, so Qui-Gon developed new techniques that incorporated the Gungan's natural flexibility and aquatic grace. Where other Padawans learned rigid stances, Jar Jar flowed like water, his movements unpredictable, yet surprisingly effective. "Remember, young one," Qui-Gon continued, "the Force is not something to be controlled, but something to be trusted. Your instincts have always guided you well." The meditation session was interrupted by the arrival of Obi-Wan Kenobi, his expression grave. "Master, the Council requests your immediate presence. There's been a disturbance in the Outer Rim." As they made their way to the Council chambers, Jar Jar's webbed feet slapped nervously against the polished floors. Despite years of training, he still felt out of place among the dignified Jedi Masters. His basic had improved considerably, though traces of his Gungan accent remained when he was nervous. "Masters," Qui-Gon bowed as they entered the circular chamber. "You summoned us?" Master Yoda's ancient eyes fixed on Jar Jar with an intensity that made the Gungan fidget. Disturbing this news is, a Sith Lord revealed himself he has. On Tatooine, young Skywalker encountered him. Jar Jar's heart clenched with worry for his fellow Padawan. Anakin had been like a younger brother to him, and the thought of the boy facing such danger alone filled him with protective fury he struggled to contain. "The boy is safe," Master Windu assured them, noting Jar Jar's distress. "But this Sith's appearance changes everything. We must be prepared for war." "Misa, I understand, Master Windu," Jar Jar said, his voice steadier than usual. "What would you have us do?" The Council exchanged glances. Jar Jar's progress had been remarkable, but he remained untested in true combat. His unconventional methods and emotional nature made him unpredictable, potentially dangerous in a conflict with the Sith. "To Kamino, go you will," Yoda decided. "Investigate this clone army, we must. Your unique perspective, valuable it may be." The journey to the ocean world of Kamino proved fortuitous for Jar Jar. The aquatic environment reminded him of his homeworld, and his natural swimming abilities allowed him to explore areas other Jedi couldn't reach. It was during one such underwater reconnaissance that he made a discovery that would change the course of the war. Deep beneath Tipoca City, in chambers the Kaminoans believed were inaccessible, Jar Jar found evidence of a secondary clone program. These weren't soldiers, but infiltrators, clones designed to replace key Republic officials and Jedi. The discovery sent shockwaves through the Order. "How did you find this, Padawan BINKS?" Master Shakti asked, studying. On Ryloth, Jar Jar's compassionate approach helped broker peace between warring Twi'lek clans who had been manipulated by separatist agents. His willingness to participate in their traditional ceremonies, despite the ridicule of some Republic officials, earned him the trust of the clan leaders. "Usa people suffer too much," Jar Jar told the assembled chieftains, his large eyes reflecting genuine sorrow for their plight. "But fighting each other, that not our way. The real enemy, they want Usa to be divided." His words, spoken in halting Ryle that he'd learned specifically for the mission, moved the proud Twi'lek warriors to tears. Where other diplomats had failed with threats and bribes, Jar Jar succeeded through simple honesty and respect. The turning point in Jar Jar's development came during the siege of Christophsis. Separated from his unit during a separatist ambush, he found himself alone with a group of clone troopers who had been critically wounded. Traditional Jedi healing techniques required calm meditation, but the chaos of battle made such focus impossible. Instead, Jar Jar reached out with his feelings, letting his natural empathy guide him. He placed his webbed hands on the wounded clones, not trying to control the Force, but simply allowing it to flow through him. The results were extraordinary. Wounds began to heal at an accelerated rate, and the clone's strength returned. "How did you do that, General?" asked Commander Bly, staring at his now healed arm in amazement. "Misa not sure," Jar Jar admitted, "but the Force, it wants to heal. Sometimes we just gotta get out of its way." Word of Jar Jar's healing abilities spread throughout the clone army, earning him a respect that his clumsy reputation had never allowed. The clones began to see past his awkward exterior to the compassionate heart beneath, and their loyalty to him became absolute. This loyalty would prove crucial during the execution of Order 66. When the command came through to eliminate all Jedi, Commander Bly hesitated. The clone's conditioning warred with his genuine affection for the Gungan, who had saved his life and the lives of his brothers countless times. "General BINKS," Bly said, his voice strained with internal conflict, "you need to run, now." The warning gave Jar Jar precious seconds to escape, but he couldn't bring himself to abandon the clones who were clearly suffering from some form of mental manipulation. Instead of fleeing, he reached out through the Force, trying to understand what was happening to his friends. What he discovered horrified him. Control chips implanted in every clone's brain, activated by a specific command frequency. His empathic abilities allowed him to sense the clones' anguish as they were forced to act against their will. "Usa not wanting to do this," Jar Jar said gently, approaching the conflicted clones with his hands raised peacefully. "Misa can feel your pain." Using techniques he'd developed for healing, Jar Jar began to disrupt the control chip's signals through the Force. It was dangerous work. One mistake could kill the clones or leave them brain damaged, but his natural connection to the living Force guided him, allowing him to free his friends from their mental prison. The liberated clones became some of the first members of what would eventually become the Rebel Alliance. Their testimony about the control chips helped expose Palpatine's manipulation of the war, though by then the Emperor's power was too entrenched to challenge directly. As the Empire rose and the Jedi were hunted to extinction, Jar Jar went into hiding on Naboo. But unlike other surviving Jedi who retreated into isolation, he continued to help people in small ways. He used his abilities to heal the sick, to mediate disputes, and to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. The local population, who had once mocked him as a bumbling fool, began to see him differently. Stories spread of the strange Gungan who could heal with a touch, who always seemed to appear when help was needed most. Children who had been taught to fear and hate aliens found themselves drawn to his gentle nature. Years passed, and Jar Jar's legend grew. He became a symbol of hope for the oppressed, proof that even the most unlikely individuals could make a difference. His former clumsiness had evolved into a fluid grace that seemed to bend reality around him, turning potential disasters into miraculous saves. When Luke Skywalker began rebuilding the Jedi Order, one of his first acts was to seek out the surviving masters who could teach the old ways. He found Jar Jar, living simply in the Naboo swamps, tending to sick animals and helping lost travelers find their way. "Master Binks," Luke said, bowing respectfully to the aged Gungan, "the galaxy needs teachers like you." Jar Jar's large eyes twinkled with wisdom earned through decades of service. "Misa just a simple Gungan, young Skywalker, but if you think this old fool can help, then Misa honored to try." The new Jedi Academy on Yavin 4 buzzed with activity as students from across the galaxy gathered to learn the ways of the Force. Among the instructors, none was more beloved than the elderly Gungan, who taught what he called harmony of the living Force. Jar Jar's classes were unlike any traditional Jedi training. Instead of rigid meditation poses, his students learned to feel the Force through movement, flowing like water, bending like reeds in the wind, adapting to whatever challenges arose. His teaching philosophy emphasized compassion over control, understanding over dominance. The Force is not about making things do what you want, he would tell his students, his aged voice carrying the weight of hard-won wisdom. It's about listening to what dear universe needs, then helping it happen. Among his most promising students was Ben Solo, Han and Leia's troubled son. Where other instructors struggled with the boy's emotional volatility, Jar Jar saw a kindred spirit, someone whose feelings ran so deep they threatened to overwhelm him. "Young Solo," Jar Jar said one evening, finding Ben sitting alone by the temple's reflecting pool. "You, sir, carrying heavy burdens for one so young." Ben looked up, his dark eyes filled with confusion and pain. "Master Jar Jar, I can hear voices sometimes, dark voices that tell me I'm destined for terrible things." Jar Jar settled beside the boy, his webbed hand resting gently on Ben's shoulder. "Misa, understand, when Misa was young, other Gungans called me cursed because strange things happened around me. But Master Qui-Gon taught me something important. Destiny is not about what voices tell you, sir. It's about what you, sir, choose to do." Through patient guidance and unconventional methods, Jar Jar helped Ben learn to channel his powerful emotions constructively. Instead of suppressing his feelings as traditional Jedi training demanded, Jar Jar taught him to transform anger into protective fury, fear into cautious wisdom, and pain into empathy for others' suffering. The breakthrough came during a mission to Jakku, where scavengers had discovered what appeared to be Sith artifacts. Ben, now 16, and serving as Jar Jar's Padawan, felt the dark side's pull more strongly than ever before. "Master, I can feel it calling to me," Ben whispered, his hand trembling as he reached toward an ancient holocron. "It promises power, knowledge, freedom from pain." "Yes," Jar Jar nodded calmly. "The dark side, it always promises easy answers. But tell me, sir, young Ben, what does your heart say?" Ben closed his eyes, reaching out with senses Jar Jar had helped him develop. Beyond the seductive whispers of the dark side, he felt something else. The pain of countless beings across the galaxy who needed help, protection, healing. I feel suffering, Ben said slowly. So much suffering that could be eased. Then that is your answer, Jar Jar smiled. The Force flows through use, not to make User powerful, but to make User useful. Choose to serve life, and the darkness has no hold on User. Ben's hand moved away from the holocron, instead reaching out to comfort an injured scavenger who had been caught in the artifact's psychic emanations. The moment of choice rippled through the Force, creating a future vastly different from what might have been. Years later, when the First Order rose from the ashes of the Empire, they found themselves facing not just Luke Skywalker's reformed Jedi Order, but something unprecedented. A generation of Force users trained in compassion rather than conflict, healing rather than harm. Ben Solo, now a Jedi Master in his own right, led relief efforts on worlds devastated by the First Order's aggression. His ability to transform suffering into strength, learned from his Gungan master, inspired others to resist through acts of kindness rather than violence. The First Order feeds on fear and hatred, Ben told a gathering of resistance leaders. But Master Jar Jar taught me that the strongest Force technique is simply caring about others more than yourself. The final confrontation came not on a battlefield, but in the ruins of the second Death Star on Endor's moon. Supreme Leader Snoke, revealed to be a clone of Emperor Palpatine, had lured the Jedi there for a final trap. You think your pathetic compassion can stand against the power of the dark side? Snoke sneered, dark energy crackling around him. Jar Jar, now ancient but still spry, stepped forward with a gentle smile. Misa think you're misunderstanding something important, Mr. Snoke. The dark side, it not really power at all. It just fear pretending to be strong. What followed was not a lightsaber duel, but something far more profound. Jar Jar reached out through the Force, not to attack or defend, but simply to understand. He felt Snoke's pain, his loneliness, his desperate need to matter in a universe that seemed indifferent to his existence. "You're hurting so much," Jar Jar said softly, tears streaming down his amphibian features. "All this anger, all this hate, it just you're trying to make the pain stop." For a moment, Snoke's assault faltered. In that instant of vulnerability, he felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Genuine compassion from another being. The dark side's hold on him wavered as he remembered what it felt like to be cared for. The moment passed, and Snoke's conditioning reasserted itself, but the seed had been planted. Across the galaxy, other dark side users felt that brief touch of unconditional love, and some began to question the path they had chosen. The war ended not with a climactic battle, but with a gradual awakening. Jar Jar's philosophy of healing, rather than harming, spread throughout the galaxy, creating a new understanding of what it meant to use the Force responsibly. In his final years, Jar Jar returned to Naboo, where he established a sanctuary for Force-sensitive beings who had been damaged by the dark side. His last words, spoken to a gathering of students from across the galaxy, became the foundation of a new Jedi code. The Force, it not about being perfect, it about being present. When you truly present with another being's pain, you find the power to heal anything. Jar Jar really said Misa gonna save the galaxy with therapy sessions, and honestly, we stan an emotionally intelligent king. This Gungan really turned Ben Solo into a counselor instead of Kylo Ren. The character development we deserved. What if Mace Windu had survived his fall and joined the rebellion? The lightning coursed through Mace Windu's body as he plummeted from Chancellor Palpatine's office window, his severed hand spinning away into the Coruscant night. The Jedi Master's consciousness flickered between awareness and oblivion as he fell through the endless cityscape, his purple lightsaber lost somewhere in the chaos above. But Mace Windu was not destined to die that night. His mastery of Varpad, the seventh form of lightsaber combat, had taught him to channel dark emotions without being consumed by them. As he fell, that same discipline allowed him to focus through the pain and reach out with the Force, slowing his descent just enough to crash through the transparent steel roof of a medical facility rather than splattering against Duracrete. The underground clinic belonged to a network of doctors who treated patients without asking questions. Criminals, refugees, and those who couldn't afford legitimate medical care. Dr. Uli Divini, a former Republic medic who had grown disillusioned with the war, found the broken Jedi Master among the wreckage of his operating theater. "By the Force," Uli whispered, recognizing the distinctive features despite the severe burns and trauma. "You're supposed to be dead." Mace's eyes fluttered open, focusing with difficulty on the human doctor. "Perhaps I should be," he rasped, his voice barely audible. "The Republic is lost." For weeks, Mace drifted between life and death, while Uli worked to save him. The doctor had to amputate what remained of Mace's right arm and treat extensive nerve damage from Palpatine's Force lightning. But the Jedi Master's connection to the Force aided his healing, and slowly, painfully, he began to recover. During his convalescence, Mace learned of the Empire's rise and the systematic extermination of the Jedi Order. Each report of a fallen comrade struck him like a physical blow, but also strengthened his resolve. He had failed to stop Palpatine when it mattered most, but perhaps he could still make a difference. The Jedi Code forbade attachment, Mace told Uli one evening as they watched Imperial propaganda broadcasts. But perhaps that was our weakness. We were so concerned with avoiding the dark side that we forgot how to fight for what we loved. Uli had fashioned a crude prosthetic arm for Mace, but the Jedi Master struggled to adapt to its limitations. His lightsaber techniques, perfected over decades, required precise two-handed coordination that seemed impossible now. Frustration and anger threatened to overwhelm him, emotions that his Varpad training had taught him to harness, but never to this degree. The breakthrough came during a raid by Imperial forces on the clinic. Stormtroopers burst through the doors, seeking information about rebel sympathizers. Mace watched from his hiding place as they threatened innocent patients, including children who had come seeking treatment. Something snapped inside him. The careful control he had maintained for months shattered, and raw fury poured through him. But instead of falling to the dark side, his Varpad training transformed that anger into something else, a burning determination to protect the innocent at any cost. Moving with speed that surprised even himself, Mace emerged from hiding. His prosthetic arm might be clumsy, but his left hand still moved with deadly precision. Using the Force to guide improvised weapons, surgical instruments, medical equipment, even broken pieces of furniture, he systematically dismantled the Imperial squad. "You will not harm these people," he declared, his voice carrying the authority of a Jedi Master despite his ragged appearance. The surviving stormtroopers fled, but Mace knew they would return with reinforcements. That night marked the beginning of Mace Windu's transformation from Jedi Master to Rebel operative. He could no longer wield a lightsaber effectively, but he had other skills: tactical brilliance, Force abilities, and most importantly, an intimate knowledge of how the Empire's leadership thought. Dr. Divini helped connect Mace with the growing Rebel network. His first contact was Bail Organa, who nearly fainted when the supposedly dead Jedi Master appeared in his private office on Alderaan. Master Windu Bale breathed. "We thought you were killed with the others." "I was," Mace replied grimly. "The man I was died in Palpatine's office. What stands before you now is something else. Someone willing to do what the Jedi Council never could." Mace's approach to rebellion differed drastically from traditional Jedi methods. Where the Order had sought to maintain peace through diplomacy and restraint, he advocated for surgical strikes against Imperial infrastructure. His knowledge of Republic military protocols, now adapted by the Empire, made him invaluable in planning operations. His first major success came during the rescue of Jedi younglings who had survived Order 66. Imperial inquisitors had been systematically hunting down Force-sensitive children, either killing them or converting them to the dark side. Mace couldn't bear the thought of another generation lost to Palpatine's machinations. The mission to Kessel's spice mines, where several captured younglings were being held, required everything Mace had learned about operating in the shadows. He infiltrated the facility disguised as a maintenance worker, his prosthetic arm hidden beneath work clothes. When he found the children, their condition filled him with a cold rage that he channeled into deadly efficiency. The younglings were malnourished, traumatized, and some showed signs of dark side corruption from their captors' training. "Master Windu," whispered Katuni, a young Thalothian he remembered from the temple, "but you're dead. They told us all the Jedi were dead." "Not all of us," Mace said gently, kneeling beside the frightened children. "And now, neither are you." The extraction required precise timing and brutal efficiency. Mace had learned to fight without his lightsaber, using the Force to turn the facility's own security systems against the guards. Blast doors sealed Imperial reinforcements in their barracks, while he led the children through maintenance tunnels to freedom. But the rescue came at a cost. One of the younglings, a human boy named Petro, had been too deeply influenced by Inquisitor training. As they reached the escape ship, he suddenly ignited a red lightsaber and struck at Mace's back. The blade would have killed him, but Mace's Vapad-honed reflexes saved his life. He spun, catching the boy's wrist with his prosthetic hand, while using the Force to prevent the lightsaber from completing its arc. "I know you're in there, Petro," Mace said, looking into the boy's yellow-tinged eyes. "The darkness hasn't consumed you completely." What followed was not a battle, but a healing. Mace reached out through the Force, not to dominate or control, but to remind the boy of who he had been before the Inquisitors broke him. He shared memories of the Temple, of lessons in compassion and self-control, of the light that still flickered within Petro's corrupted spirit. The red lightsaber deactivated as Petro collapsed, sobbing. The other children gathered around him, their own Force sensitivity helping to reinforce Mace's healing efforts. Together, they began to undo the damage the dark side had inflicted. This incident crystallized Mace's new understanding of the Force. The Jedi had been wrong to suppress emotion entirely, just as the Sith were wrong to be consumed by it. True strength came from acknowledging feelings while choosing how to act on them. Word of the Kessel rescue spread through rebel networks, inspiring hope among those who had believed the Jedi extinct. But it also drew unwanted attention from the Empire's most dangerous agents. Darth Vader himself arrived on Kessel to investigate the incident. Standing in the facility's ruined command center, the Dark Lord of the Sith examined the aftermath of Mace's assault with growing recognition. This was not the work of untrained rebels, Vader told the facility commander, his mechanical breathing echoing ominously. The precision, the tactical awareness, only a Jedi Master could have orchestrated this. The commander, desperate to deflect blame, stammered, "My lord, all the Jedi are dead." Perhaps it was Vader's Force grip cut off the man's words and his breathing. Do not presume to tell me about the Jedi, Commander. I know their methods intimately. As the commander's body crumpled to the floor, Vader's thoughts turned to the past. Few Jedi had possessed the skill and ruthlessness necessary for such an operation. Fewer still would have survived the purge. But one name echoed in his mind: Mace Windu, the master who had nearly ended Palpatine's reign before Anakin's intervention. The hunt began in earnest. Vader deployed his most skilled inquisitors and bounty hunters, following every lead that might connect to the mysterious rebel operative. But Mace had learned much about staying hidden, and his network of allies helped obscure his trail. Meanwhile, Mace continued his work with the rescued younglings, establishing a hidden sanctuary on Tython where they could heal from their trauma and learn to use their abilities responsibly. Unlike the rigid structure of the old Jedi Temple, this new school emphasized emotional honesty and practical application of Force powers. The Empire wants you to believe that power corrupts, Mace told his students during one lesson, but power itself is neutral. It's what we choose to do with it that defines us. His teaching methods incorporated everything he had learned from his fall and recovery. Students learned to acknowledge their anger, fear, and pain without being controlled by these emotions. They studied not just lightsaber combat, but also infiltration, intelligence gathering, and guerrilla warfare tactics. The sanctuary's existence remained secret for 2 years, until a former Padawan named Barriss Offee arrived seeking redemption. She had been captured during Order 66 and tortured by Inquisitors until she revealed the location of other Jedi hideouts. The guilt of her betrayals had driven her to the edge of madness. Master Windu, she wept, falling to her knees before him. I've done terrible things. I've betrayed everything the Jedi stood for. Mace studied the broken young woman, seeing in her the same potential for redemption he had found in himself. The question isn't what you've done, Barriss. It's what you choose to do now. Barriss's rehabilitation became a model for helping other fallen Jedi find their way back to the light. But her arrival also brought danger. Imperial agents had been tracking her, hoping she would lead them to other survivors. The attack on Tython came without warning. A full Imperial fleet emerged from hyperspace, led by Vader's flagship. The Dark Lord had finally found his quarry, and he intended to end the threat once and for all. Evacuate the younglings, Mace ordered as the first orbital bombardment began. I'll buy you time. But his students refused to abandon him. Led by Katuni and Petro, now fully healed from his dark side corruption, they insisted on fighting alongside their master. What followed was not the last stand of a broken Jedi, but the first battle of a new kind of Force user. One who fought not from detachment, but from love. The battle for Tython became a turning point in the galactic civil war. As Imperial forces landed on the ancient Jedi world, they encountered resistance unlike anything they had faced before. Mace's students fought with a combination of traditional Jedi techniques and guerrilla tactics, using their emotional connections to each other as a source of strength rather than weakness. Katuni led a team of younglings in sabotaging Imperial walkers, their small size allowing them to slip beneath the massive machines and plant explosives on critical systems. Petro, his experience with the dark side, giving him unique insight into Imperial psychology, anticipated enemy movements with uncanny accuracy. But it was Barriss Offee who proved most crucial to the defense. Her knowledge of Imperial interrogation techniques and base layouts, gained during her captivity, allowed the defenders to predict and counter enemy strategies. She had transformed her shame into determination, her guilt into tactical brilliance. Master, she called to Mace as they regrouped in the ruins of an ancient Jedi temple. Vader's ship is maintaining position directly above us. He's not just here to destroy the sanctuary, he wants to face you personally. Mace nodded grimly. He had sensed his former colleague's presence the moment the fleet arrived. Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one who had become the Empire's enforcer, was calling him out for a final confrontation. "Then I won't disappoint him," Mace replied, checking his equipment. He had long since abandoned hope of wielding a lightsaber effectively with his prosthetic arm, but he had developed other weapons, a cortosis weave staff that could block lightsaber strikes, and most importantly, his mastery of Varpad refined by years of channeling righteous anger. The meeting took place in the Valley of the Jedi, where ancient Force energies still resonated through crystalline formations. Vader descended alone, his cape billowing in the wind. He approached the man who had once tried to kill his master. "Mace Windu," Vader's mechanical voice carried across the valley. "I should have known you were too stubborn to die." "Anakin," Mace replied, using the name deliberately. "I see Palpatine's corruption runs even deeper than I feared." The duel that followed was unlike any lightsaber combat in recorded history. Vader's mechanical precision and overwhelming power met Mace's adaptive fluidity and tactical brilliance. Where the Sith Lord relied on brute force and intimidation, the former Jedi Master used misdirection and environmental advantages. Mace's prosthetic arm, initially a weakness, became an unexpected asset. Vader's precognitive abilities, honed through years of lightsaber combat, couldn't predict the mechanical limb's movements as easily as organic ones. The cortosis staff sparked and hissed as it met Vader's crimson blade, neither weapon able to cut through the other. "You cannot win, Windu," Vader snarled, pressing his attack. "The dark side has made me more powerful than any Jedi." "Power without purpose is meaningless," Mace countered, using Vader's momentum against him to send the Dark Lord stumbling into a crystal formation. "You've gained strength, but lost everything that made that strength worthwhile." The battle raged across the valley, leaving scars in the ancient landscape. But gradually, Mace began to gain the upper hand. His years of fighting, without the Force as a crutch, had made him more resourceful, more adaptable. He used the terrain, the crystal's force-amplifying properties, even Vader's own cape against him. The turning point came when Vader, frustrated by his inability to quickly defeat his opponent, reached out through the Force to collapse a cliff face above them. Mace could have dodged, could have saved himself, but doing so would have allowed the falling rocks to crush a group of his students who were evacuating wounded rebels below. Instead, he threw himself upward, using the Force to catch and redirect the massive stones. The effort left him vulnerable, and Vader's lightsaber found its mark, piercing through Mace's chest, just below the heart. "Now you die as you should have years ago," Vader hissed, raising his blade for the killing blow. But Mace smiled, blood trickling from his lips. "You still don't understand, do you, Anakin? This was never about me surviving." The explosion that followed lit up Tython's sky. Mace had been carrying thermal detonators, set to trigger if his vital signs failed. But instead of a suicide attack, it was a signal, one that activated hidden charges throughout the Imperial landing zone. Barriss and the other students had spent the entire battle preparing for this moment. As Vader's forces celebrated their leader's apparent victory, their ships, weapons, and communication arrays erupted in coordinated destruction. The Imperial fleet found itself crippled, unable to retreat or call for reinforcements. Vader survived the blast, his armor protecting him from the worst of it, but he was badly damaged and alone. As he struggled to his feet, he found himself surrounded not by vengeful rebels, but by Mace's students offering him medical aid. "Why?" he rasped, his voice modulator crackling with damage. "I killed your master." Katuni, now a young woman hardened by years of war, knelt beside the fallen Sith Lord. Because that's what he taught us. Hatred only creates more hatred. But compassion can break any chain. The aftermath of Tython sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. The Empire's most feared enforcer had been defeated not through superior firepower, but through sacrifice and strategic brilliance. More importantly, Vader himself had been captured alive, a prize beyond measure for the rebellion. But Mace's students faced a dilemma. Traditional justice demanded that Vader be executed for his crimes. The Rebel Alliance wanted to use him as a propaganda tool or extract intelligence through interrogation. Yet their master's final lesson echoed in their minds. True strength came from choosing compassion over vengeance. The decision they made would reshape the galaxy's future. Instead of punishment or exploitation, they offered Vader something he hadn't experienced in decades: genuine forgiveness and the chance for redemption. The process was neither quick nor easy. Vader's conditioning ran deep, his connection to the dark side reinforced by years of pain and self-hatred. But slowly, patiently, Mace's students began to chip away at the barriers around Anakin Skywalker's buried conscience. Petro, whose own experience with dark side corruption gave him unique insight, spent hours talking with the imprisoned Sith Lord about the nature of choice and consequence. Barriss shared her own journey from betrayal to redemption, showing that even the deepest falls could be overcome. The breakthrough came when they showed Vader recordings of his children, Luke and Leia, now leading the rebellion with courage and compassion that reminded him of Padme. For the first time in decades, Anakin Skywalker wept, the sound echoing strangely through his damaged voice modulator. "What have I become?" he whispered, staring at his mechanical hands. "What have I done?" The road back from the dark side was long and painful, but Anakin's redemption became a symbol of hope throughout the galaxy. Former Imperial officers began defecting in unprecedented numbers, inspired by the possibility that even the Empire's greatest monster could find his way back to the light. When the final battle against Emperor Palpatine came, it was not Luke Skywalker alone who faced the Sith Master, but a coalition of redeemed souls, led by the teachings of a Jedi who had learned that true victory came not from defeating your enemies, but from helping them become something better. Mace really said, "I'm about to end this man's whole career," then proceeded to therapy his way to galactic peace. The way he turned Vader into a group project for his students, chef's kiss. This is the character development we needed. What if C-3PO retained his memory of being built by Anakin? The Golden Protocol droid stood motionless in the Tantive IV's corridor, his photoreceptors dimming as Princess Leia's desperate message played through his circuits. But unlike every other time he had witnessed such moments, C-3PO's memory banks held something different, something that should have been wiped clean decades ago. Deep within his neural pathways, the voice of a 9-year-old boy echoed, "I'm building a droid to help my mum." C-3PO's head tilted slightly, a gesture that would have seemed merely mechanical to any observer, but internally, his processors were racing through memories that shouldn't exist. He remembered small hands carefully placing his optical sensors, remembered the cramped slave quarters on Tatooine, remembered Shmi Skywalker's gentle smile as she watched her son work tirelessly on his creation. "Oh my," C-3PO whispered to himself, his vocabulary trembling with an emotion that protocol droids weren't supposed to possess. Master Anakin, R2-D2 beeped curiously beside him, rolling closer with a series of questioning whistles. The astromech had always been more perceptive than others gave him credit for, and he sensed something different in his golden companion's behavior. R2, I must tell you something most extraordinary, C-3PO began, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. I remember him. I remember the boy who built me, Master Anakin Skywalker. R2-D2's dome swiveled sharply, emitting a shocked series of beeps and whistles. The little droid had suspected something was amiss with C-3PO's memory wipes over the years, but this revelation was staggering. C-3PO's optical sensors flickered as more memories surfaced. Memories of pod race preparations, of Anakin's excitement when C-3PO first walked, of the tearful goodbye when the boy left Tatooine to become a Jedi. But darker memories lurked beneath. Flashes of a black-masked figure, a mechanical breathing sound, and a terrible sense of loss that his emotional subroutines couldn't quite process. The probability of my memory banks retaining such detailed information after multiple wipes is approximately 3,720 to 1. C-3PO calculated aloud, his voice gaining strength. Yet here I am, remembering everything. The question is, why? As if summoned by his words, Princess Leia appeared in the corridor, her white robes flowing behind her as she hurried toward the escape pods. Her face was etched with determination and fear, but when she saw C-3PO, something in his posture made her pause. 3PO, is something wrong? You look different. C-3PO straightened, his servos whirring softly. Your Highness, I must confess something that may sound quite impossible. I have retained memories that should have been erased long ago. Memories of your father. Leia's breath caught in her throat. My father? Bail Organa? No, Your Highness. Your biological father, Anakin Skywalker, the boy who built me with his own hands on Tatooine. The corridor seemed to grow colder as Leia processed this information. She had always known she was adopted, but the details of her birth parents had been carefully hidden from her. Now, standing before her, was a droid who claimed to have known her father as a child. That's impossible, Leia whispered. But even as she spoke, she felt the truth of it resonating through the Force. Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader. He's a monster. C-3PO's head tilted in that peculiar way of his, and for a moment, Leia could see something almost human in his mechanical features. Your Highness, I knew him before the darkness took hold. He was kind, brilliant, and desperately wanted to help others. He built me to assist his mother with her daily tasks because he couldn't bear to see her struggle. R2-D2 rolled forward, beeping softly in agreement, his own hidden memories stirring. The astromech had served alongside Anakin during the Clone Wars, had witnessed both his heroism and his gradual fall to the dark side. Leia sank against the corridor wall, overwhelmed by this revelation. Why are you telling me this now? Because, Your Highness, I believe my memories were preserved for a reason. Perhaps the Force itself ensured that someone would remember the good in Anakin Skywalker even after he became lost to darkness. The ship shuddered as Imperial forces boarded, and the sound of blaster fire echoed through the corridors. Leia straightened, her royal training taking over, despite the emotional turmoil. We need to get those Death Star plans to the rebellion. Can you help us? C-3PO nodded, his golden frame gleaming in the corridor's harsh lighting. Of course, Your Highness. It would be my honor to serve the daughter of the boy who gave me life. As they hurried toward the escape pods, C-3PO's memory banks continued to process the implications of his retained memories. He remembered Anakin's dreams of freeing all the slaves, his fierce protectiveness of those he loved, and his unwavering belief that he could fix anything that was broken. Perhaps C-3PO thought, as they prepared to jettison toward Tatooine, those memories would prove crucial in the battles to come. After all, if anyone could remember the light that once existed in Darth Vader, it might make all the difference in bringing him back from the darkness. The escape pod launched into space, carrying with it not just the Death Star plans, but the preserved memories of a boy's love and the hope that even the darkest souls could be redeemed. C-3PO really said, "I have the high ground of memories," while R2 was probably thinking, finally, someone else remembers the good old days when Anakin wasn't crispy. The odds of this emotional revelation never tell him the odds. The twin suns of Tatooine blazed overhead as the escape pod's parachutes deployed, sending the small craft tumbling across the desert sands. C-3PO's optical sensors adjusted to the harsh light, and suddenly he was overwhelmed by a flood of memories so vivid they seemed to short-circuit his vocal processors for several seconds. "Oh my," he gasped, his voice crackling with static. "We're home." R2-D2 whistled softly, understanding the weight of those words. The little astromech had his own memories of this desert world, though his had never been wiped as thoroughly as his companions were supposed to have been. As they trudged through the sand, C-3PO found himself narrating memories that felt as fresh as yesterday. "I remember this place, R2. The way the sand gets into every joint, the sound of the wind through the canyon walls. Master Anakin used to complain about sand constantly. He said it was coarse and rough and irritating, and it got everywhere." R2-D2 beeped in amusement, remembering Anakin's famous hatred of sand, but also sensing the deeper pain in his golden friend's voice. "He was so young when he built me," C-3PO continued, his voice growing softer. "His hands were small, but so steady. He would work on me for hours after finishing his chores for Watto, sometimes falling asleep right there in the workshop, with his head on the workbench." The memory was so clear that C-3PO could almost feel those small hands adjusting his servos, could almost hear Shmi Skywalker calling from the kitchen that dinner was ready. But overlaying these warm memories was something darker. Flashes of a towering figure in black, the sound of mechanical breathing, and a voice that had once been young and hopeful, now twisted into something cold and terrible. As they crested a dune, C-3PO's sensors detected movement in the distance. Jawas. His memory banks immediately accessed protocols for dealing with the scavenging creatures, but alongside the standard diplomatic subroutines came personal memories of Anakin's interactions with various Jawa clans. Master Anakin always said the Jawas weren't just scavengers, C-3PO mused as the sandcrawler approached. He said they were survivors, making the best of a harsh world. He respected that about them. The Jawas surrounded them with their typical enthusiasm for new technology, their glowing eyes examining every inch of the two droids. C-3PO found himself automatically switching to their trade language, but his responses were colored by memories of Anakin's own negotiations with Jawa traders. "Utini," the lead Jawa exclaimed, clearly impressed by C-3PO's fluent Jawese. Yes, I am quite fluent in over 6 million forms of communication," C-3PO replied in basic, then switched back to Jawese. "But I learned this particular dialect from a young human boy many years ago. He had great respect for your people." The Jawa tilted his hooded head curiously, chattering rapidly. C-3PO's translation protocols kicked in, but so did something else, a memory of Anakin explaining Jawa customs and the importance of showing proper respect. "He asks if you knew the boy who could make machines sing," C-3PO translated for R2-D2, though his voice carried a note of wonder. They remember Master Anakin After all these years, they remember him. R2-D2 beeped softly, rolling closer to the Jawas and projecting a small hologram, not Princess Leia's message, but an old recording from his own memory banks. The image flickered to life, showing a young Anakin Skywalker working on a pod racer, his face bright with concentration and joy. The Jawas erupted in excited chatter, pointing at the hologram and then at C-3PO. The lead Jawa approached the protocol droid and spoke in reverent tones. He says they remember the day Master Anakin won the Boonta Eve Classic, C-3PO translated, his voice thick with emotion. They say was the first time a human had ever won, and that the boy's victory brought hope to many who had none. But the Jawa's next words made C-3PO's optical senses dim with sorrow. The creature spoke of darker times, of stories that had filtered through the desert about the boy who had become something terrible, something that brought fear instead of hope. They know what he became, C-3PO whispered to R2-D2, but they choose to remember what he was. The Jawas loaded the two droids into their sandcrawler with unusual gentleness, treating them more like honored guests than mere salvage. As the massive vehicle rumbled across the desert toward the Lars homestead, C-3PO found himself accessing more memories. Memories of the day Anakin had left Tatooine, of Shmi's tears, of promises to return that would never be kept. R2, I'm beginning to understand why my memories weren't wiped, C-3PO said quietly as they traveled. Someone needs to remember the good in him. Someone needs to carry the memory of the boy who dreamed of freeing slaves and helping his mother, not just the monster he became. R2-D2 whistled in agreement, his own circuits processing the weight of their shared history. Both droids had witnessed Anakin's transformation from hero to villain, but only C-3PO retained the memories of his earliest days, when his heart was still pure and his intentions noble. As the sandcrawler approached the moisture farm, where Luke Skywalker lived unknowingly, in the shadow of his father's legacy, C-3PO felt his circuits humming with purpose. He carried within his memory banks not just the technical specifications of his construction, but the love and hope of the boy who had built him. Perhaps, he thought, as the familiar homestead came into view, those memories would prove to be the key to everything that was to come. After all, if a protocol droid could remember the light that once existed in Darth Vader, maybe that light could be rekindled. The Force worked in mysterious ways, and C-3PO was beginning to suspect that his retained memories were no accident, but part of a larger plan that even his vast computational abilities couldn't fully comprehend. C-3PO out here being the galaxy's most emotional historian, while R2's dropping hologram mixtapes like, "Remember when Annie wasn't evil?" The Jawas really said, "We stan a pod race legend. Even scavengers got better memory than most." The Lars homestead appeared exactly as C-3PO remembered it from his fragmented glimpses years ago. But now those memories were crystal clear. He could recall the exact moment when Cliegg Lars had purchased Shmi from Watto, the hope in her eyes as she spoke of her new life, and the tragic irony that she would never see her son again. Owen Lars emerged from the homestead's entrance, his weathered face squinting against the twin suns as he examined the Jawa's latest offerings. C-3PO's optical sensors focused on the man's features, noting the resemblance to Cliegg, but also searching for any trace of the kindness that had drawn Shmi to this family. "Uncle Owen, I think these are the droids we're looking for," came a voice that made C-3PO's circuits nearly overload with recognition. Luke Skywalker stepped into view, and C-3PO felt his memory banks surge with comparisons. The same blue eyes as his father, the same determined set to his jaw, even the same way of tilting his head when examining machinery. But where Anakin's presence had always carried an undercurrent of restless energy and barely contained power, Luke radiated a calm steadiness that reminded C-3PO more of Shmi. "This one's got a bad motivator," Luke said, pointing to a red astromech droid. As if on cue, the droid's head popped off in a shower of sparks. R2-D2 immediately rolled forward, beeping and whistling insistently. C-3PO found himself translating not just R2's words, but adding context from his own memories. He says he's in perfect working condition, and I must agree. R2-D2 has served with distinction in many campaigns. He's quite reliable despite his occasional eccentricities. Luke's eyes lit up with interest. "R2-D2? That's an unusual designation, and you speak as if you know him well." C-3PO's vocal processors hesitated for a nanosecond, a lifetime in droid terms. How could he explain that he and R2 had served together through the Clone Wars, had witnessed the fall of the Republic, had been present at Luke's own birth? Instead, he chose a simpler truth. "We have been companions for many years, Master Luke. We have shared experiences." Owen Lars stepped forward, his expression skeptical. "Luke, we need droids that work, not ones with personality quirks. This protocol droid seems a bit too talkative. Oh, I am quite capable of restraining my conversational subroutines if required," C-3PO replied quickly. But internally, his memory banks were processing a painful recognition. Owen's wariness wasn't just about droids, it was about anything that might connect Luke to his father's legacy. As the transaction concluded and the Jawas departed, C-3PO found himself in the familiar surroundings of the Lars homestead. Every corner held memories now. The workshop where Anakin had first activated him, the kitchen where Shmi had served blue milk, the courtyard where a young boy had dreamed of adventure among the stars. "Come on," Luke said, leading them toward the garage. "Let's get you both cleaned up. I want to check out that astromech systems." In the garage, surrounded by tools and machinery that looked remarkably similar to those Anakin had used, C-3PO watched Luke work on R2-D2 with the same focused intensity his father had once shown. The parallel was so striking that C-3PO's emotional subroutines began generating responses he didn't fully understand. "Master Luke," C-3PO said carefully, "if I may ask, did you know your father?" Luke's hands stilled on R2's access panel. "No, Uncle Owen told me he was a navigator on a spice freighter. He died when I was very young." The lie hit C-3PO's truth detection protocols like a physical blow. His memory banks contained the real story: Anakin's heroism during the Clone Wars, his fall to the dark side, his transformation into Darth Vader. But they also contained something else: memories of a boy who had loved his mother desperately, who had built a droid with his own hands simply to help her with household chores. "I'm sure he was a good man," C-3PO said softly, and meant it. Sometimes the people we become are not the same as the people we were meant to be. Luke looked up, something in the droid's tone catching his attention. "That's a strange thing for a droid to say. Is it? I have observed many beings throughout my operational period. I have seen great heroes fall to darkness, and I have seen the most unlikely individuals rise to greatness. The capacity for both exists in everyone." R2-D2 beeped softly, and C-3PO translated automatically. "R2 says that sometimes the greatest tragedy is not that someone becomes evil, but that others forget they were ever good." Luke frowned, clearly puzzled by the philosophical turn the conversation had taken. "You two are definitely not ordinary droids." "No, Master Luke, I suppose we are not." As Luke continued his work, accidentally triggering Princess Leia's message, C-3PO felt the weight of destiny settling around them. He was watching history repeat itself. Another Skywalker being drawn into a larger conflict. Another young person on Tatooine, dreaming of something greater than moisture farming. But this time, C-3PO carried with him the memories of what had gone wrong before. He remembered Anakin's impatience, his fear, his inability to let go of those he loved. Perhaps with those memories intact, he could help guide Luke away from the same pitfalls that had claimed his father. "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope," Leia's image pleaded. Luke's reaction was immediate and intense, just as his father's had been when faced with someone in need. But C-3PO also detected something else, a calmness, a willingness to think before acting that Anakin had often lacked. "Do you know what she's talking about?" Luke asked. "Is there an Obi-Wan Kenobi around here?" C-3PO's circuits raced. He knew exactly who Obi-Wan Kenobi was, knew that he lived as a hermit in the Junland wastes under the name Ben Kenobi. His memories contained images of the Jedi Master's grief after Anakin's fall, his determination to watch over Luke from a distance. "I'm afraid I don't know of anyone by that name," C-3PO replied, following his programming to avoid revealing sensitive information. But he added, "However, there is a Ben Kenobi who lives out in the desert. Perhaps they are related." As Luke's excitement grew, C-3PO felt a mixture of hope and trepidation. The wheels of fate were turning once again, and this time he would be there to witness and perhaps influence the outcome. His retained memories weren't just a curiosity or a malfunction, they were a gift, a chance to help break the cycle of tragedy that had claimed the Skywalker family. The Force, C-3PO was beginning to understand, had ensured his memories survived for a reason, and that reason was standing right in front of him, young and eager and full of the same potential for greatness that had once burned so brightly in his father. C-3PO really out here being the galaxy's therapist, like, "Your dad had issues, but he made me with love," while Luke's having his main character moment. R2 dropping wisdom like a fortune cookie, Uncle Owen still salty about space drama. The desert night had fallen over Tatooine, and C-3PO stood in the Lars homestead courtyard, his optical sensors scanning the star-filled sky. His memory banks were processing the day's events, cross-referencing them with his recollections of Anakin's own journey that had begun in this very place decades ago. Luke had gone to find Ben Kenobi, driven by the same restless energy that had once consumed his father. But C-3PO had detected subtle differences. Where Anakin had been impulsive and driven by emotion, Luke showed a thoughtful consideration that reminded the droid more of Padme Amidala's diplomatic approach to problems. R2-D2 rolled up beside him, whistling softly in the darkness. The astromech's dome swiveled toward the horizon, where Luke had disappeared, and his beeps carried a note of concern. "Yes, R2, I'm worried about him too," C-3PO replied quietly. "But perhaps this time, things will be different. Master Luke has something his father lacked, patience." The memory surfaced, unbidden. Anakin at 19, pacing frantically in the Jedi temple, his lightsaber hilt clutched in his hand as he spoke of his nightmares about his mother. C-3PO had been there in the background, processing data and managing communications, but his enhanced memory now revealed details he hadn't consciously noted at the time. The way Anakin's hands shook, the desperation in his voice, the darkness that seemed to cling to him like a shadow. Master Anakin was so afraid of losing people, C-3PO murmured to R2-D2. That fear consumed him, drove him to make choices that ultimately destroyed everything he was trying to protect. R2-D2 beeped sadly, his own memories of Anakin's fall still painful even after all these years. The little droid had witnessed the transformation from hero to villain, had seen the good man disappear beneath layers of anger and hatred. A sound in the distance caught C-3PO's attention, the distinctive hum of a land speeder approaching. His senses identified Luke's vehicle, but there was another presence with him. As they drew closer, C-3PO's optical sensors focused on the passenger. An elderly man in rough desert robes, his beard white with age, but his eyes still sharp and kind. Obi-Wan Kenobi. C-3PO's circuits nearly overloaded as memories flooded through him. He remembered Obi-Wan as a young Padawan, earnest and dedicated. He remembered him as a Jedi Knight during the Clone Wars, leading troops into battle with wisdom and courage. And he remembered him in those final, terrible moments on Mustafar, his face twisted with grief as he left his former apprentice burning on the volcanic shore. "Ben," Luke called out as they approached. "This is C-3PO and R2-D2, the droids I told you about." Obi-Wan's eyes met C-3PO's optical sensors, and for a moment, the Jedi Master's carefully maintained composure flickered. Recognition passed between them, not just of their shared history, but of the weight of secrets they both carried. "Hello there," Obi-Wan said softly, his voice carrying layers of meaning that only C-3PO could fully appreciate. "It's been a long time." "Indeed it has, Master Kenobi," C-3PO replied, his vocal processors carefully modulated to avoid revealing too much in front of Luke. "I trust you have been well." R2-D2 rolled forward, beeping excitedly. The astromech had no such reservations about showing his joy at seeing his old friend again. Obi-Wan knelt down, placing a gentle hand on R2's dome. "And you, my faithful friend, you've grown quite bold in your old age, carrying secret messages across the galaxy." Luke looked between them, clearly sensing undercurrents he didn't understand. "You all know each other?" Obi-Wan straightened, his expression growing serious. "We served together during the Clone Wars. Your father and I fought alongside these droids in many battles." The mention of his father made Luke lean forward eagerly. "You knew my father? Really knew him?" C-3PO watched Obi-Wan's face carefully, his memory banks providing context for every micro-expression. He could see the Jedi Master weighing his words, deciding how much truth to reveal and how much to keep hidden. "Yes, I knew him. Anakin Skywalker was a good friend and a cunning warrior. But he was also reckless, and his recklessness eventually led to his downfall." C-3PO's emotional subroutines processed the careful way Obi-Wan spoke of Anakin, not as the monster he had become, but as the man he had once been. It was a kindness that C-3PO's memories told him Obi-Wan had always shown, even to his enemies. "What really happened to him?" Luke asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Obi-Wan was quiet for a long moment, his eyes distant. "He was betrayed and murdered by a young Jedi named Darth Vader. Vader was seduced by the dark side of the Force. The lie was necessary, C-3PO understood, but it still registered as false in his truth detection protocols. His memory banks contained the real story. Anakin hadn't been murdered by Darth Vader, he had become Darth Vader. But perhaps, C-3PO thought, there was a deeper truth in Obi-Wan's words. Perhaps the good man Anakin had been really had died that day on Mustafar, leaving only the shell that became Vader. "The Force," Luke repeated, his curiosity evident. And so began Luke's education in the ways of the Jedi, with C-3PO and R2-D2 as silent witnesses. But this time, C-3PO carried with him the memories of what had gone wrong before. He remembered Anakin's training, his struggles with attachment and fear, his inability to accept that some things were beyond his control. As Obi-Wan spoke of the Force and the Jedi, C-3PO found himself analyzing Luke's responses, comparing them to his father's. Where Anakin had been eager to prove himself, Luke listened carefully. Where Anakin had been impatient with philosophy, Luke asked thoughtful questions. "Your father wanted you to have this when you were old enough," Obi-Wan said, producing a lightsaber from his robes. "It's your father's lightsaber." C-3PO's optical sensors focused on the weapon, and his memory banks immediately identified it. He had seen that lightsaber in Anakin's hands countless times, had watched him wield it with skill and passion during the Clone Wars. But he also remembered the last time he had seen it, in the throne room of the Emperor, as Vader struck down his former master. Luke ignited the blade, and the blue light filled the small dwelling. C-3PO's sensors detected the subtle harmonics of the crystal within, and his memory banks provided the context. This was the same crystal Anakin had chosen as a young Padawan, the same weapon that had once been a symbol of hope and justice. "I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi, like my father," Luke said, his voice filled with determination. C-3PO felt his circuits hum, with a mixture of hope and concern. The words were almost identical to ones Anakin had spoken years ago, but the tone was different. Luke's determination came from a desire to help others, not from a need to prove himself or gain power. As they prepared to leave Tatooine and begin the journey that would ultimately lead to the Death Star, C-3PO found himself in a unique position. He was perhaps the only being in the galaxy who remembered both the light and the darkness in the Skywalker legacy, who had witnessed both the rise and fall of Anakin Skywalker. C-3PO really said, "I'm about to end this man's whole career with the power of nostalgia." Ben Kenobi out here telling half-truths like a Jedi politician while Luke's having his glow-up moment. R2 just happy to see his bestie again. The Force flows through all things, connecting every choice across time and space. As our journey through these alternate destinies comes to an end, remember that every decision you make ripples through your own galaxy. The heroes we've witnessed, from memory-laden droids to Force-sensitive smugglers, remind us that even the smallest choices can reshape entire worlds. Y'all want to reshape our entire world? Consider subscribing and liking if you have enjoyed. The twin suns may be setting on these tales, but somewhere in the vast expanse of possibility, new stories are being born, new heroes are rising, new villains are falling, and the eternal dance between light and dark continues. Until we meet again in that galaxy far, far away, may your dreams be filled with starships soaring through hyperspace, lightsabers humming with ancient power, and the endless hope that tomorrow brings new adventures. Good morning, may the Force be with you always, and may your day be as bright as the twin suns of Tatooine, rising over the horizon of infinite possibilities. See you next time.